life takes you. Congratulations on your graduation and on all of your many achievements during your time in the Ipswich Public Schools.
I'd like to present you.
Thank you very much. With you all. I really appreciate it. Good to be able to see all of you. But I'll see you around town. I got a grad party tomorrow too.
Okay.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you again. It was great to serve with you all. It's very fun. Recommend people in town to get more involved with the school committee. A lot of stuff that happens you don't really know about, but you learn a lot, and it's a lot of fun. I wish you guys the best, and I'm glad Jack's filling in. He's a great replacement. I'm hoping to see a lot of improvements to the athletic program under Jack. So, yeah, thank you so much. It was good.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Charlie.
Yay. All right, some more announcements. The last day of preschool will be Monday, June 9th. The last day of school for students in grades K through 11 is Monday, June 16th, and this will be a full day of school. School and district offices will be closed Thursday, June 19th, in observation of Juneteenth. Are there any other announcements and special acknowledgements?
I do this evening. Happy to report, and I hope I'm not stealing Jack's thunder here at all, but we have the girls' tennis team is currently playing, if they're not done already, in the quarterfinal state match this evening. And then our boys and girls lacrosse teams are also playing quarterfinal matches this, I think, tomorrow and Saturday. So they've done very well and are starting to march through the tournament. So I'm happy to report that. The other thing I wanted to mention was that the theater department was informed on Monday that they had received 12 nominations from the Massachusetts Educational Theater Guild. It's a prestigious statewide organization that honors excellence in high school theater. The nominations recognize the outstanding work from our students and staff in this year's production of Chicago Teen Edition. The nominations were for Best Makeup and Hair, Best Costume Design, Best Props Design, Best Lighting Design, Best Stage Management, Best Choreography, Best Direction, Best Specialty Ensemble, Cell Block Tango, Best Performance in a Featured Role, Colm Landry as Amos Hart, Best Performance in a Female Leading Role, Clara Dos Santos as Velma Kelly, and Best Performance in a Male Leading Role, Corey Burnett as Billy Flynn, and Best Overall Production. So they are headed to perform, I guess, at the Lawrence High School on Monday evening, June 9th, as part of that event. So congratulations to everyone involved with Chicago and the tennis and boys and girls lacrosse teams. Nice way to finish out the year.
Yeah, wonderful, awesome. Others?
I have a couple, but
Go
I
ahead.
think you have one, right?
I'll go last. Go first.
Just a big shout out to Fry's, Doyon Fry's, for their annual Doyonathon, which is just a super fun tradition. The kids love it, and it's a fun showing by seeing alumni out there too, parents who grew up doing it. And to Whitney Cardew and Mark Southam, the Doyon Elementary PE teachers, for field day, which is also just the most fun. I think the parents have as much fun as the kids do, so big shout out to those groups.
Others? All right, just wanted to point out that baccalaureate occurred last week. It was a wonderful ceremony that Dr. Blake managed well during the power outage. It started in pitch black, and everybody showed resilience, and it was a good time. It was very exciting when the lights came on. It was a beautiful ceremony. Again, congratulations to all the graduates of 2025. And the Pops concert was Monday. It's my favorite school event of the year. It's so good, and it was wonderful. Highly recommend. So, well done all.
Oh, I've got one more.
Yep.
Sorry, I thought maybe you were going to hit this one. Also, big shout out to the combined Fry's event, the Saddle Up event. It was co-chaired by Bree Garcia-Dale and Liz Doucette with a ton of parent support as well. They raised $25K for the schools, which is an enormous amount. So, awesome job.
Yeah. Yep. Exciting things at the end of the year. All right, moving on. Public comments. All right, public comment is on discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals in the school committee. It's an individual's opportunity to express an opinion on issues within the school committee's authority. While the committee and/or administrators will not typically respond during public comment, the chair, as presiding officer of the meeting, may choose to if she seems it expeditious. Further, should the chair believe that an issue falls outside the purview of the school committee, she may request that citizens direct it to the appropriate person or body so that the matter is given proper consideration. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person, a total of 15 minutes overall. And this will be the only opportunity during this meeting for members of the public to comment. Should you comment, please state your name and street and know this meeting is being recorded. And I will use a timer to signal when you've reached your allotted 3 minutes.
Good evening. Chris Carroll, 33 Upper River Road. As town officials, I imagine at some point you may have experienced your words and ideas being distorted or misrepresented in public forums. I can now relate. Because others have incorrectly determined that they have a right to speak on my behalf, I would like to set the record straight regarding my response to the school committee's amended language to Article 20 from the warrant of the May 13 town meeting. It is correct that when I reviewed the amended language first sent to me by email from the school committee chair the day after town meeting, I did acknowledge to Chair Freehand that, quote, the core message of Article 20 has been retained as it expresses town support for consideration of the MSBA's model school program. However, while the core of the article was retained, any reference to cost analysis that would be shared in a public forum was removed, and the process by which this occurred was not ideal. The purpose of Article 20 was not to treat cost as a secondary consideration to be controlled once an appropriate school building plan had been decided. Rather, Article 20 was meant to advocate that cost must be one of the primary determining factors as to whether any school building plan under consideration was appropriate. The school committee's amendment largely removes this intent. This is concerning because there are town officials who have already committed to a school building plan and have publicly announced the importance of the tri-boards remaining in lockstep with respect to support of that plan. Even though there has been minimal cost analysis performed and the town will not begin the MSBA's eligibility phase until later this year. During your town meeting debrief on May 15, the school committee members Jenny Donnelly and Vice Chair Jennifer Donahue voiced concerns that the school committee's actions at town meeting on amending Article 20 were not consistent with respect for citizen participation in this process. As the citizen in question, I can confirm that their concerns were reasonable and reflective of my experience, and I appreciate their willingness to provide honest feedback. I am alarmed that they have come under criticism by fellow school committee members and at least one member of the public simply for expressing concern around the 11th hour machinations that resulted in amended Article 20, or for conveying comments received from citizens that describe the optics of this process as appearing sneaky or sketchy. As public officials, Ms. Connolly and Ms. Donahue rightly placed their loyalty to a robust democratic process that respects citizens' voices, even if they differ from the party line. Article 20 was my attempt to engage constructively as a citizen with the school committee, but instead it was wrongly seen by some as a threat. I hope that the school committee can consider my comments in good faith and that we can move forward with a greater degree of optimism and a more inclusive
Thank you, Chris.
dynamic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Right, any other public comments? All right. Next, Technology Department update. We welcome Director of Technology Keith Borgen and Digital Learning Specialist Amy Gregory.
Hi, everybody. Thanks very much for your time. I promise we won't be taking a ton of it tonight. The reason we're here is just at the end of the year, it's a pretty good time for us to,
Stand near the mic. You have to stand near the mic. It's projecting for the people that are watching at home.
oh, okay, thank you. So at the end of the year, it's a really good time to look back on what we've done up to this point and then kind of take a look at, what we're going to be doing going forward. Some of that involves the projects that we've been working on. Some of it involves documentation. Do we have to change anything based on what we learned this year? Projects, taking a look at projects and figuring out what's going to be a priority and what isn't. It also means it's a really good time to follow up with you folks on our conversation from last year and just sort of pick up where we left off so you can see kind of where we're at. So we're just going to be dealing with the projects at kind of a very high level. We're not going to go down to the day-to-day stuff. And these are pretty much the projects that are, high on our list. So we'll just be hitting each of these at a very high point. We're really conversational. Amy and I are better with questions, so if you have any, just throw them out there. The other thing is, you may wonder how we wind up with priorities and stuff like that. There is a method to the madness. We do crunch numbers to figure out which things are going to be priorities, and we try and balance them against each other. Sometimes it's really obvious, and then at other times we turn to the matrix. But mostly at the end of the year, we take a review and make sure that we're still kind of on course. So the first thing we're going to talk about is ClassLink. And so ClassLink was a single sign-on initiative that we put into place at the elementary schools this year.
Would you mind if I just
Sure.
move you back a little bit, just so I can see these
Oh, I'm
beautiful
sorry.
slides?
You
that
move
you're-
me wherever you want.
I can still see you, though, so
Yeah,
don't,
no, that's fine.
I'm not choosing.
No problem. So we put in place ClassLink at the elementaries this year. And from the IT perspective, one of the things it offers us is single sign-on. So that really enhances our security, especially for the little ones who have trouble figuring out, their password is pig or whatever it happens to be across 15 different platforms. The other thing it allows us to do is we have to roster each of these applications over the course of a year, and we have about 120 to manage. So working with ClassLink, it provides a nice buffer between our student information system, Aspen, and all of these applications that we roster. And so the beauty of it is it's a little bit of a lift to set it up, but once you have it set up, as soon as a new student is installed in Aspen, they're in all of those applications the next day, rather than us running around behind the scenes trying to get everybody set up. So from our side, the back side of things, that's where it helps us out a lot.
It's really been about the student experience. So we get a new student that comes in and the next morning they're handed a Chromebook. To have them rostered in all of those programs with so much of our curriculum being digital now has always been a challenge, right? We want them to be able to log in just like their peers, they're new. And so ClassLink allows us to do that. It syncs overnight. Another thing is that simple login. I put a couple screenshots so you could kind of see what it looks like for the students and teachers when they come in the morning. This is a teacher dashboard sample, and this is a sample of a 4th grade student dashboard. So it really streamlines that process of one login, and then they're in every program. And especially, I think I told the story last year, I found a kindergarten teacher sitting on the floor with 20 iPads on her lap, and she was logging every student into Lexia in 2 minutes flat because they couldn't do it independently. And so for our K through 2 students, we use QR codes. We gave them lanyards that they can wear around their neck, and they just put it on the iPad, and it logs them into every program. So huge time saver. Our teachers have gotten really creative with it too, like even our new Wit and Wisdom curriculum, we've been able to put audio versions of text, and think of it just like one big bookmarks bar. And so teachers can put slideshows that they want students to access quickly, so no more scrolling or asking a student to bookmark. So it's been a busy year with ClassLink, but it's been successful in that sense. We're still tweaking as we go.
Okay, the website. That's another one of our initiatives. I think a lot of people know we're in the process of migrating from our current website to a final site website, which would be in the lower right-hand corner. Amy and I will be the first to tell you the lift was significantly more than we thought it would be when we first started this. Oh, Laura's on board too. And I think it's safe to say there was a fair amount of technical debt associated with the old site. So we're clearing all of that up so that we bring over clean information. We are, you know, we don't really have a timeline for when we're going to get there, but please know it is ongoing and we're moving forward.
The new site down there, it's our current site.
Documentation. During COVID, documentation on our end almost stopped. It was very hard to keep up with because you're so busy keeping things going. We jumped back into documentation, things like the technology plan and stuff like that, but we realize now the idea that you'll know where you're going to be in 3 years doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. So Amy and I have decided we essentially revisit all of our documentation, that project plan included, annually. And now is a good time for us to do it because last year is fresh in our mind and we kind of, it's in a good place to set up next year. So one of the things we'll be doing is every year now, in June, we evaluate a technology plan. So this year will become the 25 through 28 plan. And we're just going to roll that every year, revising it. And we're going to do a similar thing with AI.
And you can find the tech plan on the website, on our technology page, we've linked it in there. So the AI guidelines are in our technology plan. We're actually in year 2 of the guidelines. And we have student guidelines, we have staff guidelines. DESE, interestingly enough, put out a task force group to take a look at AI, how it's being used in Massachusetts schools, what are some recommendations they could make to DESE. That report came out in December. And we felt good about it. We're in good shape. We have guidelines, which is what they recommended. Professional development, we've been offering PD to our teachers since 2023 around AI. And have a course starting this summer for teachers here. And so there were a couple of pieces in there, like recommending new tools. That's been ongoing. I think the one thing that, you know, keeping up with new AI tools is one thing, but all of those 100+ tools that Keith mentioned, they're all now integrating AI too. And so we're really having to look and see in our existing world, where would our students see it? Where are teachers seeing it? So it's a moving target.
And we're working on the computer use agreement too. We revise that every year, both for staff and for students. So for instance, this year, we'll definitely be incorporating the new AI stuff into our student computer use agreements. HR software. Laura's going to like this one. So our process up until this point has been largely manual. The implementation from soup to nuts of somebody applying for a job or even the idea that a new job's around versus someone walking in for their first day, that workflow has been very manual, with the exception of a large, intimidating set of colored folders in Laura's office. And as somebody moves forward in the process, they move from the red folder to the orange folder to the, and the way the process starts a lot of times can be either an email or just a chat passing someone by. So Laura approached Amy and I earlier this year for just, can we think about maybe getting more official HR workflow in place? And so we did some vetting, excuse me, and we ended up with Power School. One of the advantages there is that it implements with School Spring, which is our current solution. And what it would do is it basically walks the candidate through the process from, well, actually, it walks everyone through the process from the initial idea, I would like to hire this job, to the point where we bring the person in for the first day. And the good part is, once all of that is done, we have that person and their information in our HR system going forward. And you want to talk?
Yeah, what's nice too is timing doesn't become as much of an issue because now notifications are sent. You know, there's a new recommendation to review. You can digitally send out a request for a recommendation. Setting up meeting interview times isn't 5 emails back and forth anymore. It's right within this portal. I really enjoy, we'll have a dedicated IPS School Spring job openings page that we can embed onto our new website too.
The other thing is, because candidates have to put in a little more effort up front, you're probably going to get a better pool of candidates to choose from. So in terms of timeline, we're going to work on standing up the onboarding part of this process this summer. And what that will do is get all new employees into the HR system. Once that is up and running, We're then going to take a look at our existing employees so we can move them into the HR system and then use that for workflows, for maybe time off requests and things like that going forward. Cybersecurity. I can't remember if we had been awarded the grant when we spoke last year, but IT applied for and was awarded a $100,000 grant for cybersecurity last year. I can't do a deep dive into all of this just because of the nature of the content. If you folks would like a deep dive in cybersecurity, and hey, who wouldn't? We could schedule something like that for executive session or whatever you want. But the reality is, just know that all of these bullet points are going forward. And we intend to have everything completed by December of this year. Data dashboard. I can give you a little bit of the background behind this. Amy and I were at a conference January of '24, and we just noticed a ton of sessions about data dashboards. And Amy pulled me aside while we were there, and she said, we have all of these great applications and all of this data. It would be awesome if we could just kind of centralize it, and have one place where it can tell a story. And so we came back and started vetting vendors in the area that could help us build a data dashboard that we could tailor to suit our needs. And we were fortunate enough to find a vendor that not only has a lot of experience in Massachusetts, so MCAS and information like that works, but also works with a lot of schools on the North Shore. And so I think we signed with them in June of last year. It might have been May. And then like a month later, we got an email. And I'll mention the data you're about to see, by the way, is not real student data. It's been obfuscated, so you don't have to worry about that.
So we took a couple screenshots so you could see. So we have a district view. We're going to have 3 views of a dashboard. So we'd have the district view, then we'll have a school view for our specialists and coaches, principals, and then we will have a teacher view, so a teacher can see all the students in their classroom. And what we've done is we've brought in our data from Aspen, so our demographics, and we're still, like I said, we're very small steps. We've just started at the elementary level with literacy only. We've brought in 3 different measures so far. But as you can see here, it really gives you that snapshot view of what's going on with our benchmark assessments. So no more of that siloed information logging into 5 different programs. Our coaches had reported that they're going into each program, then they're printing out all the data. It was taking hours to prepare for data analysis meetings. And so we're taking our different programs and we're trying to match them right to the MCAS benchmarks. That was kind of our standard that we started. You'll recognize those from MCAS presentations of exceeding, meeting. And so that took some time as well, and that's where our consultant and the company we work with really helped. The sky's the limit, but like I said, we're going slow. This, we're hoping, and what we've heard and the ask after we started looking into it is this would be great for SST meetings when we're trying to come up with intervention groups, and we're trying to look at, successes of students and red flags. Think of this, it's a real balance, right? Because as a former classroom teacher myself, I want all the data, but we really want to see that snapshot, almost like the back of a baseball card. Give me that high level that would make me then say, oh, you know what? Now this is interesting. Now I'm going to go dig into the Renaissance program and log in and drill down and get more information. But it's a great starting point. And so this, as you can see along the left there, is the student portrait. And like I said, it's just literacy, and we're in the process now of, we have 2 years worth of data in there, so that's exciting. We've been able to showcase that, and we just started sharing this out this week to one of the SST teams who had asked for it last summer. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely not ready for prime time yet.
No.
We're working on building blocks. We're not sure where this is going to go, and so we want to make sure we just have a really good foundation for wherever it does go. So that's kind of the stage we're at now. Our hope is next year we'll be able to show you basically something that really does help around. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question about the data analytics piece. Is that something that you could come up with individual student profiles on, where you have a collection of all of the assessments, like per student, that could be used for IEP meetings or?
Yes, that's what this is. So
Right,
we
okay.
have a drop-down right here, and that's every student it will be every student that they have access to, so, and then when choosing that, all the data will be there, as far back as we want to enter the data in, as we automate that.
Is that something parents would be able to see or be in conjunction with report cards or anything like that? Or is it just for internal use?
For internal use, a lot of these programs we have ability to have parent reports, and we already have ways that we share this information out with parents at conferences, the dyslexia mandate, so some of this data is shared already.
Thank you for the presentation and the work, because I know, like you were saying, there's a lot of work that goes into it at the beginning, and then it makes it easier for everybody. About how long does this save? You were saying that teachers, are they the ones who used to create the accounts for their students, or whomever used to do that? I'm curious to know.
ClassLink.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, how long does how much does it save? How much time? Probably went from.
At the end of this year.
Oh.
Last year, it saved us no time, because we had to spend all of our time
That-
setting everything up.
Okay, remember this question.
Yeah,
My guess is it'll be about 10 to 1. That's
Yeah.
my guess.
especially too with so many more programs and data online and curriculum.
And the worst part is when a new student would come in, and you've got to manually put them in, and this poor kid, they're just starting, and
Yeah.
they're already, it's just so unfair.
Yeah.
So that, yeah.
Yeah.
We're really looking forward to
This
this.
is our first rollover.
Okay, and the HR obviously would save a lot of time.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you so much for the
Wait, wait, wait,
presentation.
wait,
and your
wait,
work.
wait. I have a question, sorry. Thank you, this is great. I'm impressed with how much you're doing and how on top of things you are, especially AI and cybersecurity and all that, and single sign-on, it's great. 2 questions. One, I have my budget hat on. So in terms of cost of things like PowerSchool and ClassLink, is that all worked into your budget? And are these things that are now going to, I assume, have to be paid for every
Do you
year?
want to
and-
talk a little bit about ClassLink and the economics that it gives us?
Yeah, so, right, one of the things we didn't mention is that there is an analytics platform in this where we can drill down and almost see heat maps of logins. So typically, when we're looking at tools to renew, we're looking at usage is one of the key factors, right? Are teachers using it? Are students using it? How much are they using it? And a lot of times, you don't get the drill down information that you need from a vendor. ClassLink now gives us that, so we can see, for example, in our Lexia is a good one, we can see when a student has logged in, how many minutes they were active in the program. It will add it up by school, by class, by grade. And so we can really see how it's being used, which helps inform the budget. And we're hoping to make budget decisions with now having this ClassLink data moving forward.
Right.
But as far as paying for ClassLink, PowerSchool, you want to address that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can, if we think about the HR software, what we're looking for is kind of economy of scale too.
Yeah.
So once we're able to import everybody into the HR software, our goal is to replace our current workflow, and by the way, much maligned workflow system. And so that would take those numbers off the book, and that
Right.
goes towards paying for the HR software. So that's
Yeah, that
kind of
makes
how
sense.
we're
Yep.
trying to balance all of this stuff.
Okay, thanks. And my second question is, with that data analytics, so we get an MCAS presentation every year, which is great, but, we all know that's one piece of information, and there's always the local assessments that we all hear about. So down the road, could this data analytics be something that was sort of aligned with that MCAS presentation? So someone could present, here's how the 3rd grade's doing in math, or here's how Winthrop's doing compared to last year, sort of thing? At more of a
Yeah, I
local
mean,
level?
one of the things we'll be looking for down the road is probably trending. That is a ways
Yeah,
down
yeah.
the road.
Yeah.
Right now, we're just focused on that baseball card being correct.
Right.
And
And getting everybody in
all that
there,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. But yeah, that's part of what I meant when I'm like, we don't quite know where we're going to go with this. And part of it is we're not experts yet at using
Right.
data like this effectively. So if that's one of the places that really helps the district, sure.
Yeah, I mean, putting some data behind those local assessments would be great, I would think.
Yeah, and that's on our radar too, as well as math, and
Right.
have a plan.
She always has a plan.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, next, we have the Wellness Policy Review and potential approval, and we welcome members of the Wellness Committee, including Food Services Director Megan Person.
While Megan is coming up to the microphone, I just want to say this policy has been in the works for a while now. We've gone through several iterations. There's been lots of discussions around the policy in the community, just in terms of what's in it and what wasn't in it before. And I think that it's important for us to sort of do a quick historical look back. Prior to COVID, we had a wellness policy and a wellness committee that was just barely getting off the ground, and then COVID hit, and it completely stopped. And then once we came out of COVID and started, getting back into the swing of policies and things, we realized that we needed to put together a wellness committee that's required by the state. And then when we started digging into that wellness policy, we realized that we were sorely lacking and behind in a lot of the state and federal requirements. And so we've spent a lot of time reviewing the policies. We got involved with Fitchburg State. Did I say that right this time?
Framingham?
And Framingham? Do it again. And they worked very closely with us. So at this point, I'm just going to turn it over to Megan to at least start the discussion, and then I think the other ladies, members of the committee, will speak as well.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to present the school wellness policy for your review and approval. Before I begin, I would like to thank my fellow wellness committee members for all their hard work and dedication over this past
And
school
we're having a
year.
hard time hearing you.
Sorry.
That microphone is only for projecting for the people that are watching at home.
So I have to be
So we have to
Project
project
for us.
for us. And maybe we can probably move it back into the center
Yeah,
since
be
we're not using
closer. If you don't mind.
there you go.
Okay. Start again.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to present the school wellness policy for your review and approval. Before I begin, I would like to thank my fellow wellness committee members for all their hard work and dedication over the past school year. Together, we have developed a wellness policy that we feel is well-crafted, thoughtfully addresses the needs of our students and the school community. The policy covers key areas such as nutrition standards for school meals and snacks, physical activity requirements, and initiatives to support mental and emotional health. By adhering to these regulations, we are supporting the overall wellness of our students in a way that is consistent with the latest health standards and evidence-based practices. The Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act requires all districts that participate in the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program to establish a local school wellness policy. These policies are meant to support student health by ensuring that all foods and beverages sold to students during school day meet specific nutritional standards. In accordance with the USDA Smart Snacks in School standards, all foods sold or served to students during the school day, which is defined by midnight until 30 minutes after the end of the school day in Massachusetts, must meet specific nutrition guidelines. These guidelines limit calories, sugar, fat, and sodium content in snacks. Unfortunately, traditional bake sale items such as cookies, brownies, cupcakes, and similar treats typically do not meet these standards. In addition to nutritional concerns, bake sales pose a significant risk for students with food allergies. Many common bake sale items contain allergens such as nuts, dairy, eggs, or gluten, which can cause severe or even life-threatening reactions. By restricting bake sales within schools, it protects the students with known and unknown allergies. It minimizes the risk of accidental exposure, and it maintains a safe and inclusive environment for all students. We understand the importance of fundraising for school programs and student activities, and we recognize that bake sales are a long-standing and beloved tradition. The USDA Wellness Policy Guidelines aim to create a healthier school environment for all students. By finding creative and compliant alternatives, we can continue to support our school programs without compromising student health or violating federal policy. Some alternatives for a bake sale could be selling concessions at sporting events, selling flowers, plants, cards, Ipswich custom merchandise, photo booth fundraisers, choosing evening or weekend fundraisers, or selling USDA Smart Snacks at the fundraisers during the school day. I want to emphasize that this wellness policy is not simply a reflection of personal preference or what we want as individuals. Rather, it is a comprehensive framework designed to comply with state and federal regulations. These guidelines are mandated by law, and our district is required to follow them to maintain funding, ensure student safety, and promote a healthy learning environment. We appreciate your support in approving this policy so we can continue moving forward with a wellness plan that benefits all members of our school community while meeting our legal obligations. The Wellness Committee is happy to answer any questions or provide further details. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Are there any? So everybody's had a chance to review the policy in the folder. We just got a little more context on it.
Introduce yourselves and up there as well.
Yeah. You can say your name and maybe your role on the committee or your background, your qualifications.
So I'm Ashley Kisak, and my role on the committee, I guess, is as a community member. I also work in public health, and the research that I do focuses solely on childhood nutrition and foods in schools.
My name's Kate Graham. I'm a parent.
Microphone. Sorry, I just want people to
For the home people.
My name's Kate Graham. I'm a parent of a student in the committee, in the community. I'm also a therapist, and I served on the committee from the start of this year.
Hi, my name's Kenny Cousins. I've been involved with coaching for over 40 years. I was a Division I athlete myself, and I've worked with a lot of the youth here locally for about the past 6 years. So I was happy to provide some input, particularly on the physical fitness portion of the plan.
And we also had Nurse John Stafford on the committee and another community member. Got anybody else?
No questions, but I'll just say first, thank you particularly for those of you that volunteered. This is something you're doing on top of everything else. And it's super important for our students, for the schools, so thank you for that. I think you did a great job fully addressing both health and equity concerns and questions that have come up, so that was terrific. It's important to note, I didn't realize until reviewing it, the policy brings us in compliance with federal and state standards and requirements. Also particularly important when we think about our students who aren't able to represent themselves, and we're showing up for them, so thank you for that.
So just the rest of the committee was myself, Kate Graham, Kristen Boyd, Ashley Kisak, Liz Greenwood. We had a student representative, Zach, the elementary nurse, John Stafford, and Megan on the committee. And Kenny. Look, I'm reading from an email that you sent.
So I have some comments, if that's okay. So I'm a registered dietitian, a pediatric registered dietitian, actually. It happened for a lot of years, and I know I gave some pushback to this policy when we first heard it. I think because I hadn't done my research entirely. So now that I have, and thank you for all those links you provided, that was super helpful. And thank you, Megan, for the perspective. So I've done some more reading and reviewed the policy and just done some more thinking. I think last time I spoke to this, I also was speaking as a parent of two high schoolers who one is and one was heavily involved in a lot of these groups that do the fundraising, National Honor Society, class officers, and they do a lot of these fundraisers. So my initial reaction was like, how can you take this away from the students? However, now that I've sort of done some more reading and thinking about it, I actually think Ipswich does a pretty good job at this. When I think about all the fundraisers my kids have done over the years, we have the mum sale, the wreath sale, the, I don't know if the jump rope contest is a fundraiser. My kids can't jump rope, but we do that. You know, there's there's walkathons, there's the gift card calendars. Like, we do a lot of this stuff already. Some of the more beloved fundraisers, I think, could probably continue under this because they're maybe not during the school day. They're once a year. It seems like we could still do things like an ice cream social once a year if it was in the evening. You know, there's some things I think around food that could probably still happen in alignment with this, but I think our job, I've always felt that our job as a school district is to be role models around nutrition. I remember when my kids were in kindergarten, I was fighting the like no chocolate milk and only offer ice cream once a week battle. I think before you were here, Megan, but you know, I think it's our job to sort of teach things in moderation. So I think this policy sort of is in line with that. And so thanks for all your work. I also think it would put, I like the equity issue, but I also think it would put a little some guardrails on the classroom parties that maybe have got, sometimes things just get a little, you know, candy here, candy there, here's a treat, here's some, you know, I think it will sort of put some guardrails on that and just change the culture around. It doesn't always have to be candy, you know, it can be other things. I think it's just a little bit of creativity needs to happen, and I think it's doable and it aligns with the state and federal standards, so I support this.
I like this policy. The things that come from the school should be, like all the information that the kids receive should be healthy and, you know, ways that can help the students thrive. So I think that's across the board. We want that with teachers and, you know, the food. I just have a couple questions. So does this, I was confused last time too. Are the fundraiser items after, 30 minutes after the final bell? Is that under this policy? There are not, correct me, there are not restrictions between 30 minutes after the final bell and midnight the day before a school day. So it does not affect after school? Correct. Okay. So like cakes for kids, fine. Right. People are going to be so happy about that. Good. Say it louder. Be one of them. Let's see. Okay, and the fundraisers during school, like what, for example, what are the fundraisers that happen during school that would be under this?
So sometimes,
Ooh, microphone.
Can you go to the microphone, please?
Sorry.
sometimes clubs and school will have bake sales during lunch or in the morning as the kids are coming into school. That happens
Regularly.
a lot, quite a bit. So those kind of things, they'd have to sell smart snacks that are approved in Massachusetts and not have just homemade baked goods that they're bringing in.
Right. And so that starts in high school or middle school, or where does that, because I know it's not in the
No, it's not in the
elementary schools.
In high school,
In high school.
yes.
A lot of times it's a class that's trying to raise money for their class to offset like the prom tickets or something.
Right.
So that's,
But I mean,
that
it's
happens a
sold
lot with those
to,
groups. To other
to anybody in
kids
the
coming
high
in.
school, not middle school.
Yeah, I think so.
The regulations are for all the schools. I just think historically, there have been,
That what has happened.
gotcha. Yeah,
It's just-
it's
they're
just
just
been
not gonna be in
happening in the
elementary
high
school.
school, and it has not.
The biggest, so Jenny, to answer your question, a lot of the, even sports teams do like brownie sales in the
Right.
morning as kids are going in and they take turns selling their brownies. So I think that's where it's going to hit the hardest
Yeah.
for the change.
Yeah,
So high school is where kids are doing homemade baking and bringing
Right.
it in to sell.
so if it's something that, and I know this is a bigger issue than what I'm going to say, but if it's something that they are not homemade and they can provide the ingredients, you know, with that would eliminate the possibility of somebody, I would think that if someone has a peanut allergy, they'll probably are used to looking at the ingredients to know, so that
The
would.
snack or the good still needs to be A-list compliant.
Okay. So is there like, if it's the law, why do we even need to vote on it? So that's the policy. The policy references the law, but the policy, it references it. There's other things in the policy that are not about bake sales at all. We talked about, you know, preserving recess time for kids. So there's a lot in the policy, but that I think has gotten a lot of attention. It is
Okay.
referenced, but like you're saying, it's not really,
Okay.
it's not our personal feelings. It is state and
Okay.
federal
Yeah.
requirements.
So what are the or what are the things that we should discuss that are just in our wellness policy that has room for discussion? It's not bake sales. That's the law. That's that.
Like I said,
Thank you for your answer, by the way.
I think, like I said, preserving recess time.
Good.
It's like all policies, like there's like some aspirational things, or we want to have recess before lunch, not after lunch. Like, so there are things that aren't law, but we looked at a lot of other school policies and we're like, oh, we like that. A lot of things we're already doing. So I don't think
Yeah.
it's other than a couple things that are going to need to be tweaked in current practice, there's not huge changes, but it's kind of putting in writing a lot of good things we're doing and a lot of things that we should be doing. But I don't know if anybody wants to add anything else.
I guess I would just jump in as a therapist and someone, like I moved to the community a couple of years ago, and I've been so impressed by Ipswich schools' real attention to like whole body wellness. And I think in being a part of this committee, it's been a wonderful opportunity to bring this aspect of the school into line with the rest of the way in which the school district is so impressive. And so I think my sense is we're now coming up to where in this particular aspect we've been a little bit behind, I think, if that's okay to say. And I think everyone on the committee has done a wonderful job in really thinking about and being very sensitive to the changes and the language and what is being proposed outside of the regulations as well.
It was brought to our attention about that the school lunches, at least in the middle school and high school, are due for an upgrade, perhaps. Will this wellness policy do that, or will it give different options? I know they have some options now, but will it change the menu so it's fresh and new?
I'm going to let Megan take that one harder, but first I want to say all this conversation's making me think, you mentioned that we worked with the Framingham State program. That was it phase 1 or part 1? There's a part 2. So anyway, part 1 was getting our policy up and running. They made sure that we had all these requirements in the policy. Part 2 is more like walking us through some implementation, and I think we would like to continue with that program because they offered great guidance. So I think we might have even better answers, by this time next year. But I think you have answers to that already.
So this policy has been in effect since 2010. So school lunches already fall under this policy. Because of COVID, we haven't been compliant with the wellness policy. So we're trying to catch up on that. As far as the menus go, we're always trying different things, new things as kids' tastes change. We've implemented vegetarian bowls, Mexican bowls, and I was just working with the middle school. They're doing a civics project, and we're going to work together to try to upgrade some menu items that they enjoy. So it's just a constant work in progress as kids mature and their taste buds mature and fads come and fads go.
Okay.
happens if we don't comply? Like, what happens if we're saying, if we say, no, we're gonna continue bake sales? Like, what would happen? Or out of compliance, you wanna,
Potentially, we could lose federal funding.
gotcha. Thank you.
I think this would require, oh,
Okay.
okay. I think this would require a little bit of a culture shift, not a huge one, but maybe particularly at the high school and a little bit at the elementary schools for the staff. So anything we can do, like in that implementation phase, or anything we can do to give ideas and suggestions to, you know, I don't know if it would be the administrators or the nurses or you all or us, but to the teachers and the kids and maybe even the sports teams of other ideas, because I think there are a lot of other really cool ideas that we could implement in place. Maybe raise more money, because what do we charge for a brownie? Like 50 cents, $1?
No idea.
I mean, I have, same.
Talk about the road show. Yeah, so I think this will certainly be one of our topics for our administrative retreat this summer, and then in the fall, as school is getting started, I'll incorporate it into the opening days in terms of comments that I make at my opening, as well as, you know, Diana and I were doing a road show, basically to share, you know, beginning of year faculty meetings with folks so that everybody understands it and we're starting off the year on the same page.
Like school councils, RISE, other groups you mentioned, yeah.
I have some questions / ideas. I want to say thank you, first of all, for the work. I know it's work. Thank you. So the two things that come to mind of concern are implementation and food insecurities. Implementation, I guess my first question is, as I read the policy under competitive foods, and defined by foods, must comply, foods and beverages, I'm sorry, I have like 3 different tabs open right now, must comply with Massachusetts nutrition standards for competitive foods and beverages in public schools and the USDA's Smart Snacks nutritional standards, whichever is stricter. And I think it's going to be hard because when I open the standards, I think for implementation, I'm very concerned about high school and bake sales. I think it is going to be a culture shift, but I think if this committee continues, I hope that there, like you said, a road show, there needs to be an education. Like how do you know, sports teams that want to do a bake sale 30 minutes after school while there's still kids on campus, I think that would be their time to sell brownies, but how are they going to be educated on if they want to sell something during the school hours? And it says they can do it as long as it's not, and this is the Smart Snacks in school, foods and beverages sold during fundraisers, unless these items are not intended for consumption at school or are otherwise exempt by your state agency. So I'm thinking of the NHS has this fudge sale, and it's really not meant to be consumed in school. So is that something that can happen?
Technically, that is something that can happen.
Okay. So I think implementation and education to some of the organizations that feel like change is imminent, I think is going to be helpful for the committee. So I hope that the committee continues and works with the groups to help understand what is allowed. And then my other concern / question is the food insecurities. I know from my parent volunteerism in the elementary schools, I know that teachers keep a little extra for kids that don't necessarily have. And what is the education going to be about what can be kept on hand? And sometimes that's donated food for students who show up and don't have food.
So lunch and breakfast and lunch are served free to all students in the district. They're allowed to take as much fruit and vegetable as they want. If there are, usually if there are students that we're made aware of, we make accommodations for them.
And I understand free lunch and breakfast. I just, I think our teachers know very well, especially in the elementaries, who has a snack in their,
This is about food being sold, isn't it? So that might not apply, right?
Served.
Served, any served, okay.
Right, and there are A-list snacks available on the list
yeah.
that can be kept in the office, like goldfish crackers.
Okay.
A little package of goldfish crackers, or a muffin, or, you know, there's a lot of snacks that are on the list that are available.
Yeah, and like, so again, I guess that goes back to the education and the kind of training of what's permitted in the classroom. I know there's teachers that supply foods for kids without snacks, and I'm not talking about breakfast and lunch. I'm talking about kids who just need snacking during the day. And I think are there any, and maybe it's in here and I didn't read it, but are there any accommodations or something to allow for, I know I had students, my own children had trouble with weight gain, not obesity, and some of these are caloric issues. What if there's a student that has an exception that is needing something other than what's on this list for caloric value?
So as a medical issue,
Yeah,
doctor's note.
And also, students can still bring in whatever their parents want to send them in with, whatever they want to bring to school.
yeah.
It's just what the school is actually providing to students during the school day. So there's no regulations around what types of foods are brought in by students.
Okay. So I guess I would ask, as you move forward with implementation, to keep in mind that there are our wonderful educators take care of these kids and will need snacks that are on this list as extra in the classroom. I hope that's supported. Thank you.
Yeah, I just have, again, thank you all for all of your work on this. My one question is about the parties and celebrations section. The fact that food has been completely eliminated from celebrations held in the classroom, is that a standard that was given, or was that a choice that was made?
Say the question again.
In terms of food, celebrations held in the classroom will not involve food. Was that a standard that was given? Like the same way bake sales, it's like, that's a law, we have to be in compliance. Was that specific thing a law thing versus a choice thing?
I think so. Food that's served has to come from the list. So it would require, typically if there's a classroom party, it's, hey parents, send in this, 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 and this. It would require the parents to then go to that list and get those snacks, which aren't usually what the party snacks are. So it would have been very hard to implement that. Anybody have anything to add? And then it also, I think, goes to the allergies, inclusivity, all those other things, like trying to shift all rewards to food rewards to other ways to celebrate.
Yeah,
I think basically what you're saying is like, how do we be more inclusive and wellness oriented when we're thinking about celebrations in the classroom? And for example, at the school I was with previously, you would bring in a book for a birthday and like sign that. And so we're really just thinking about like both the wellness, the mental health piece, the allergy piece, and the inclusive piece, and trying to be really clear so that we're also setting up people for success, because, you know, it's all good if it's on paper, but to Jen's point, unless we help people like implement this and we do that successfully, and by giving kind of some clarity around that, hoping to set people up for more success as well.
Sorry, I know when you reviewed the people who were on the list, were there teachers, classroom teachers who were on the committee as well?
No, they're just a nurse.
Okay. My preference would be to see that worded the same way the following sentence is worded, in terms of celebrations for school-wide events are strongly encouraged, that both of those could be lumped together. And then with that following sentence saying that the food involved should be in compliance with this. I think just thinking about how that's administered, I understand the concern in terms of how it could be, there's a learning curve here around all of this. But I think the idea of, doing this in moderation could still be applicable. And, oftentimes, again, in terms of how those celebrations are administered, when those emails go out to families, either that's a classroom parent or a teacher. And so if those guidelines are provided to them, when they're creating a list that says these are the items we need you to bring, I think it would be pretty easy for them to, provide a really clear list, like here's what it can be, and parents can sign up the same way they do now. And I think that, again, it's going to be a sort of like, what's the accountability piece of that, right? So I think that's a challenge, certainly, but I think it leaves room for, again, the idea of moderation as opposed to just eliminate it all.
I want to add,
The transition makes me think of last year with the new cell phone policy for the high school. And we had lots of discussion, the same thing, what's the transition, should we ease into it? And lots of terrific discussion, and in some cases warranted, some places not warranted concern. And I think a week into that, we heard from parents and teachers and administrators, it went great. And immediately starting at the beginning of the school year, instead of weaving it in and allowing for inconsistency, which had been a problem before, really made a big difference in that being a positive change. And we heard from students too, actually. Charlie talked about it quite a bit. And so I'm thinking about this in the same way of, that worked really well for us last year. Implementing this the same way, we would leverage the same benefit that saw.
So,
I'd also like to add that as a committee, we're required to meet 4 times a year. So we're going to reevaluate this policy quarterly to see what's working, what's not working, what we can improve on. Can we better communicate with people and make improvements throughout the year?
I have, every time someone was talking, I was like, yes. Start with the meetings that you have. Are they open meetings? Can the public attend?
Yep, so the Wellness Committee is not a subcommittee of the school committee.
Right.
It's my committee
Yeah.
that I put together and run.
Right.
They're not held in secret, but they don't have to be posted under open meeting law.
Okay, but the public can come.
Oh, yeah.
There's like a public comment for them to, or like, they cannot participate at all.
It's not set up under public meeting law.
Okay,
It's-
okay.
We only have one school committee member on the Wellness
Okay,
Committee.
gotcha. We put out calls for members, and we did get some more community members, but there were no further staff members or anybody
Right.
beyond who's been mentioned,
Right.
anybody who wanted to be on it is included. Jen, I missed what you were saying. Did you say that the guidelines that you were looking at, or the link that you had looked at, which I missed, my fault, that fundraisers, bake sale fundraisers are allowed in school as long as they don't consume the item at school?
it is page 5 of the Smart Snacks Standards. Which foods and beverages sold at school need to meet the Smart Snacks Standards? It's
Oh,
tag number 3. Foods and beverages sold during fundraisers.
ah,
So they need, they need to meet the smart snack standards unless these items are not intended for consumption at school or are otherwise exempt by your state agency.
Okay. So,
Oh, I just know that the fudge sale was a hot
right.
issue last year when this policy first came up, and that's why I think implementation,
Right.
like,
So again, what I tried to listen as much as I could. So basically,
if it's
Bake
not
sales-
intended, it needs to meet the
Oh, it still needs
smart
to meet the
snack
smart snacks.
standards. Unless these items are not intended for consumption at school or are otherwise exempt by your state agency.
okay.
So, like, the fudge.
So fundraising, as long as they don't eat the item during school, is allowed. Were kids eating fudge during school? Is that what?
I think it's like a pound of fudge that's like
It's
all
like a pound
prepackaged.
in a
So like most
package.
kids aren't gonna
Right.
like
So they weren't-
bust it open in class versus like,
Big box of fudge.
Right.
So it's not an individual,
Okay. So
The intent was not to
open it at the table. and
open,
start.
Right.
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 so that's allowed.
Many of the educators buy it for their Valentine. That's what I,
But I guess my point is fundraising, bake sale items or items that are not on the list can be sold. They just cannot be eaten during school. Is that right?
It's probably technically
trying
right.
to
It feels
understand.
unrealistic.
Right, but it's, yeah.
It's unrealistic for a high schooler to be like, you just bought this muffin, but don't eat it for the next.
right, I
hour."
think.
Yeah, we're not going there. That's,
yeah,
Yeah,
we're
and
getting
I-
really into
Ashley,
the
did you?
weeds.
I would imagine, I'm very familiar with these, and that was intended more for like a bulk item, like a pie or fudge or something that you are going to take home.
Right.
Not individual items that they're just gonna unwrap and eat.
Right.
Again, I think the gray area is like tricky,
Right.
so.
Okay. I know I couldn't not. I'm just saying.
I think we're getting, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I agree
Oh,
with,
yeah, yeah.
I agree with Sasha. I don't foresee anybody selling a brownie and saying, don't eat that, and then thinking that they're complying with this policy. And that's why I'm concerned about implementation and education around it. I do think the fudge is the example of, it's bulk food, you know, and it's not intended. But it's not intended to be eaten at school, but the education that happens by this committee, and Dr. Blake is going to explain that. These are bulk items or given examples of what can be sold, and I think that's important.
I also want to point out we're encouraging non-food items. Like, it's not banned, but like the goal is to promote health and wellness, right?
Cultural shift.
Right, exactly.
Right, yeah.
I was hearing general support.
Yes. Is there a motion?
I was going to make a motion, but I just wanted to.
So I want,
Wait.
can we go back to?
Well, I can do it under discussion too, so. We have a very long meeting.
Yeah.
And
I think we're getting
like
really
Megan
into the
said, we are
weeds
going to
of
continue to meet, we're going to
implementation.
implement, next year. Well, that's my question, Diana, is it possible, given, the only difference that with the cell phone policy is that cell phone policy was not it was not a moneymaker. So I'm wondering is it possible to implement it 26, 27 to give teams
We are already non-compliant.
an
Compliant,
opportunity
so
to
Not compliant.
Complicated, I don't.
Okay, all right, well, just throwing it out there.
These standards were implemented in 2014 based on a lot of research. So we are updating the policy to be current, and we are behind. It's like, we have to be compliant. So it's not something we can choose.
Okay,
It's something that's been in existence since 2014.
okay. So I think that it was going to fall on the parents to put in more money for the sports or whoever would benefit, that's all.
Or non-food fundraisers.
Or not,
Which is-
yeah, that's all,
yeah,
as long as it's successful.
So can I just ask a question before you motion?
Yeah.
To Haley, and Diana has it highlighted, the line about the celebrations in classroom, what were you suggesting, or?
I guess just to shift, like maybe those things, celebrations for school-wide events and those held in the classroom are strongly encouraged to not involve food. If food is involved, blah, blah, blah. So instead of completely eliminating it from classroom celebrations, to say same thing, like, we're gonna strongly encourage that it doesn't, but if it does, they need to be the smart snacks.
Yeah.
So, I know you can all see it, I know you can't, but the line, celebrations held in the classroom will not involve food is highlighted on our screen.
May I ask the reason for that, just for, as a committee, so we can understand the concern?
I think my thinking is like, sort of like I said, you know, the idea of moderation, I think is a value that, you know, can be reflected here in classroom parties, where we're not saying like parties shouldn't have any food at all, right? We can say parties can have healthy food.
Right,
And so there can still be that like celebratory kind of aspect to things, but I've been in classrooms for lots of parties, and I fully understand that what is served is ridiculous.
Right.
But I think it's sort of, it doesn't need to be like an all or nothing. I feel like it could be, again, like a learning opportunity, a steep learning curve, as we've said, but there's some room there for still having something included, you know?
Like to have food like included in like a birthday celebration or something?
I have an
Or like,
I have an
you know, in the fall,
example.
I think they do like a harvest party, right? Like, so maybe it's, I don't know, sliced apples, right, with cinnamon on it. Like, that's healthy, but
That's
it's.
a school-wide.
That would be a school-wide.
No, it could be classroom. Could be classroom.
Classroom, yeah, the classrooms
I think,
do.
Classrooms do
Winthrop
different.
has
Classrooms do
been-
that.
That's school-wide.
I mean, I think that's different, schools do those things differently as well. But that's, I mean, there are individual classroom, like, holiday parties that they do.
I'll go back to my suggestion just on the consistency. Then this becomes about individual parents or individual teachers. And then we come back to the equity, and for me, like I haven't mentioned it, but I think the piece about, we have several students who have severe allergies who feel excluded when things like that happen. It's great to say apples, but who knows what actually shows up? That's hard for that individual student, so that someone can bring in brownies or cookies.
I mean, yeah, I think that that's addressed now, like, you know, if you're the person who's coordinating it, the teachers tell you, we have this allergy in the classroom, and that's reflected in those lists. So I think that's, I don't think that whether or not people are bringing cupcakes or apples, whether it's a healthy smart snack or not, like, that's something that is currently already being addressed when those things are rolled out.
So next week, there's a scavenger hunt, and I have 2 kids with celiac, and we're kind of sourcing the pizza from a local family, right, to support someone in town who owns the business, which is so great. And I called them up, and they said, we just don't have anything gluten-free, and so my kid's going to go to the scavenger hunt and eat whatever like a PB&J. And you know, the teachers did what was on the IEP. They let me know ahead of time, and I called the vendor, and they're just going to miss out. And I think that's kind of what you're speaking to, and that's hard. My kids miss out all the time, even if people are really sensitive to like the Sign Up Genius, and there's a list and things like that. And it's tough.
What
Thank you
about,
for sharing that.
yeah, what about, what about,
Long meeting.
what about, like, a language class that does a celebration
That's allowable.
that's allowable, even if it's a
it's
bouche de
I believe
Noël, a
so.
beautiful, like, dessert?
The evening cultural fair is allowed because it's after school hours.
Well, no, like,
And no,
You're talking
do
about in
culinary classes, and if food is part of a course or curriculum.
okay.
You should be mindful of
Promotion.
it seems like we're looking for exceptions.
Yeah.
I feel like the
Yeah.
policy is written, we're at 99 beyond % agreement. I feel like we should
Right.
move forward with it.
This is a living, breathing document, too. If they're going to continue to meet, then I think it can change.
One final point on this, when we brought this up to the consultant that we worked with Framingham State, she said a lot of districts have done things where they have a celebration and they tell the parents like, hey, we're going to have this harvest party, send your child in with a special snack for the day, and they get their snack out for the party. And that's one way to
Yeah.
kind of celebrate with food, but food that the parent has provided.
I think we're getting really into the weeds of implementation.
Celebrations held in the classroom will not involve food is a very strong statement.
That's
like-
okay. We
yeah.
don't need to have celebrations with food. I think that's all right.
All right, is there a motion?
I move to support the wellness policy ADF as drafted.
Second.
All right, moved by Sasha, second by Jenny. Further discussion? Thank you. All in favor? All right, thank you. The motion passes. Thank you so much for coming.
very much.
Thank you,
Thank
folks.
you. Thank
not
you so much.
easy.
It's a pleasure working with you all. All right.
All right, Feffy.
Next up. All right, so FEFI's committee update. We welcome members of the FEFI's committee, Chair Mark Evans, Treasurer Walter Zagrobski, and Member Larry Seidler.
Just go thank them.
30 seconds. Hi.
Hi.
So I'm Larry Seidler, Mark Evans, Walter Zagrobski. We're three members of a seven-man FEFI's committee appointed by you folks, the Select Board, and the Finance Committee. We're appointed for three-year terms, a maximum of 2 terms, 6 years maximum. This is my last year. We've been around since, the FEFI's have been around since 1660. And up until a few years ago, they were not giving an awful lot of money to the schools. The school system sued the CEFIs, and this is the change that occurred as a result of that. And the reason we're here is had a little meeting with Kate and thought that it would be a good idea if people understood a little bit more about who the FEFIs were, what we do, where the money comes from that you're getting every year, $1 million approximately. And there should be some level of transparency. So with that, Mark is going to say a few words, and then Walter.
Thank you.
As Larry says, the FEFIs have been around since 1600. We were not original FEFIs.
I was like, you guys look great.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear. I'm Mark Evans. I'm the current chair of the FEFI board. And in my day job, I work at a firm called Cambridge Associates in Boston, and we work with endowments and foundations and help them kind of both manage their financial assets, but think about how to help make those assets survive for the long term. And that's very much what we as the FEFIs do with the pool of money that came to us after the sale of the Little Neck real estate back in the earlier, about 10 years ago. You know, William Payne, who kind of started this all back in the 1650s, you know, he had a goal of having the endowment remain as a benefit to the Ipswich schools forever. Forever's a long time, but it's, quite frankly, it's done pretty well. I mean, we're 375 years into it. You know, I'll give you a little bit of the history and where we've come, but I think in many ways we're in a great place today. But to kind of succeed over the next 350 years, it requires a few things. It requires good governance, so how we manage the pool of assets we have. Requires cooperative financial markets. They don't always cooperate, and there could be long periods of time where the markets are not delivering a return, and that factors into our thinking about both how we invest this pool of money and how much money we distribute to the schools each year. And it requires, you know, all of that kind of comes together in this concept of intergenerational equity. We wanted both to be able to distribute money that benefit the students of today, but we also want to grow the corpus at a rate that keeps up with that spending and inflation so that we're delivering the same kind of real dollars, so inflation-adjusted dollars, 100 years from now, 200 years from now. And that's a challenge. But I think, you know, I think we're in a good place again, and that's our goal. So a little bit of history. Maybe I'll be quick on this because I know it's warm in here and you've been here a long time, but you might, as the school committee, appreciate this. The first school in Ipswich was set up in 1636. It failed, and you may appreciate this reason. It failed because there was no money. So the second attempt at getting schools going in Ipswich really was around 1650. William Payne and some others were instrumental in starting the grammar school. But they said there needs to be something to fund it. And back then, the idea was real estate. You put some real estate in trust. The term FEFI is an Old English word, essentially, that means a real estate trust. And the proceeds of that real estate, the rents, would pay for the schools. And the first pile of real estate, and it really was a pile, was essentially everything from the Chabaco River up to the Gloucester line. It was rented in what had to be one of the greatest real estate deals ever to John Cogswell for 1,000 years for 14 pounds a year. Did a little, internet search, so put a caveat on how accurate this is, but 14 English pounds in 1650 is about $2,800 today. It was a pretty good deal. It didn't last because in the early 1700s, folks realized 14 pounds and maybe some butter and milk from the animals he had on the land wasn't enough to run the schools. And there was a big fight. It all got reset. And essentially, where we ended up with was Little Neck. There was other real estate that got disposed of along the way. And that speaks to the difficulty of keeping assets together for the long term. But we ended up with Little Neck. And we know that back in the early 2010s, the FEFIs got out of the real estate business. We sold the land to the tenants on Little Neck, and we ended up with around $22 million as the corpus of the financial endowment that now represents the new FEFIs Trust. Again, we've been lucky. The markets have been generally, despite some bumps along the way, generally pretty supportive. That $22 million is around $44.5 million today, so we've been able to grow it. And since we started making distributions to the schools in 2015, the distributions have totaled just under $10 million. So it's been a pretty significant and, quite frankly, unique financial asset for the town of Ipswich. I don't know that there are any other towns that have an endowment of this size. And so it is a very special thing. So let me just talk briefly about kind of how we manage the assets, give you a little bit of clarity into that. We have retained an investment advisory firm to work with us. They partner with us. We meet quarterly with them here in town. We talk about the financial markets. We talk about our asset allocation mix within the pool of assets that we have. We talk about the underlying investments that make up that asset allocation mix. And then we also have certain special topics that we dive into at different quarterly meetings. If you think about kind of a simple equivalent of our asset allocation, think of it as roughly 65% stocks and 35% bonds. Now that's not precisely what it is. That's kind of a risk equivalent mix of what we own. We have a more diversified portfolio than that, and that's been really beneficial over time. But that's kind of, if you were to replicate this in a very simple way, that's kind of a risk equivalent stock bond mix of how we're positioned currently. You may know we used to be in the mortgage business. So when we sold the land to the house owners, we issued, for those who wanted it, we financed it for them. We are down to having one mortgage. So that's, I think, I calculated it as 0.4% of our total assets. We'd love to get out of the mortgage business, but this one mortgage is slowly amortizing, and at some point will go away. So everything we own is a mix of stocks, bonds, and other investments that are managed collectively by the FEFIs as fiduciaries and our advisor, Aureus, which is based in Boston, but come up to meet with us each quarter. And, and I think you know this. You as the school committee are responsible for the grants that of the money that we disperse each year. But I think it's a reminder that I give to all the new folks who come onto the FEFIs that, again, in William Payne's words, is to be and remain to the benefit of the said school of Ipswich forever. And the trust purpose is to support the Ipswich Public Schools by making distributions to the Ipswich Public Schools. The educational use of the distributed funds shall be determined by the Ipswich School Committee, but be of supplemental enrichment programs and uses that provide education enhancement for the students. So obviously, this is designed to provide things that the core school budget does not. It's not meant to replace the core school budget. But as a parent of children who came through Ipswich schools, I know for my youngest daughter, she was at the high school when kind of money first started flowing from the Feffys, and she went on a trip that was funded by the Feffys, and it was transformative for her. It really changed the trajectory of her life, the passion she developed from an educational perspective. So I know how impactful this can be. And I think we're all very fortunate to have it. I'll let Walter share a little bit more, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, again, my name is Walter Zagrobski, and yes, that's Zagrobski, Z-A-G. Ever since I was small, I'm used to being last, so here I am. All is not lost. My current day job is being retired up until the last couple of years. I joined the ranks of Larry, and he taught me everything I know about being treasurer of the Feffys, so I had a good mentor there. So, and Larry, thank you for your service the last 6 years. So, it went fast, didn't it? But my day job for 50 years was as an investment manager, and I managed individual money for families, and I also managed foundations, endowments, charitable funds, and so forth. So I know the space pretty well, and I can certainly attest to the fact, and I'm sure Mark would as well in his line of work, that they put together a pretty good plan here back in 2011. So congratulations to them, and we're just, the hard work was done then, and I think we have a much easier job of just overseeing and continuing the efforts that they created back then. But just, and I'll probably repeat a couple things here that Mark's already talked about, but the Feffys of the Grammar School in the town of Ipswich was created by a trust administrative order of the Essex County Probate and Family Court on December 23rd, 2011. And the motion to approve that was made by the old Feffys. That was the body that managed the money previously, before they came up with this new arrangement. So it was made by the old Feffys, the school committee, your predecessors, some of you, and the Attorney General on May 3rd, 2012. So here we are today. The mission of the new Feffys, us, is to ensure that the initial trust corpus of $22 million that Mark mentioned, plus inflation, is protected and grows prudently at an annual rate of return that will enable it to continue into perpetuity, while providing a reasonable, sustainable, and somewhat predictable stream of income to the Ipswich Public Schools. Now, I may get my assistant Larry to hand out those to you, but I want to make those comments and also say from its inception, the algorithm for calculating each year's potential distribution to the schools has been consistent. Without getting too deep into the weeds, the most important and impactful component in the formula is the overall market value of the assets, which is computed every March 31st. And the key to that is it's computed on a 12-month moving average basis. So therefore, no downturn or big upswing in the markets are going to have a major impact on this year's distribution. So again, it's the predictability of it and the smoothing nature of it is important. So as you can see, the second page of the handout shows that the 12-quarter moving average came in at 39,717,492. And that number finds its way into the far right column on the spreadsheet. I know Tom has, I've already shared these with Tom, so he's probably dissected them inside and out. But that's the basic number on which everything else flows. Now, there are a few exemptions and deductions that come from that number. that are already embedded in things. We don't need to spend a lot of time on that, but there was the reserve and the adjustment for inflation. So then, once that number comes down, then we apply the 3% spending policy to that. And that's how you come up with the $1,091,319 that's in that yellow box. So that amount we expect to be distributed to the schools, as we discussed, on June 12th. If all goes smoothly, on or about June 12th, that's the target. And so, and I also wanted to mention the fact that please keep in mind that we are in possession of $435,370 in return funds from 2021 and 2022 during the COVID years when those monies couldn't be used. You took back some of that, but there's still that remaining, and that we manage, but it's available to you upon request anytime you want it. So that's a nice thing to have. Finally, I thought it might be just worthwhile mentioning that Mark gave the $10 million number. Back in 2019, the distribution was about $779,000. So you can see with the corpus growing and a reasonable spending policy, how those distributions can increase over time. Finally, I just wanted to mention that when Mark was referring to our investment advisor, the annualized investment return that has been achieved on this portfolio after all management fees has amounted to 8.5% per year since inception. So that's pretty darn good, through thick and thin. So that's the presentation. If anybody has any questions, we're glad to answer them. But it's a pleasure working on behalf of the schools. Feel like you're doing some good.
So I've been approached in the past and have had some conversations with folks about the corpus and the how it continues to grow. And one of the questions that was asked is would there ever be an opportunity for sort of a one-off from the standard plan in terms of an expenditure? So, for example, several years ago, we had a study done here at the high school around our science program. There's a lot of interest in marine and marine biology, marine sciences. We were able to do some work on one of our classrooms, but sort of the third level of that plan was somebody said, well, why don't we put a second story on that wing over there? It'd be about $4 million. This is years ago now, not today's dollars. That would be something that we couldn't do on, through a school budget. It would be enrichment or enhancement, sort of, kind of like. So I have to ask, is that something that could ever be considered, or is it in the law, as it were, or in your guidelines that that's not a possibility?
Just to clarify the question before we answer, you're talking about a significant expenditure, maybe $4 or $5 million,
Yeah.
a one-shot payment.
Yep.
I mean, I think the way, kind of the use of proceeds, if you will, from the FEFI's endowment has been, everything I've seen, and I think there's even a policy that the school committee has written, which says that, will not be used for capital, will not be used for kind of core budgetary purposes. So I think as compelling as that is to me, because that was that was totally in line with my daughter's, passion that was ignited by a FEFI's grant many years ago. It doesn't feel like and one of the challenges, I see this managing endowments all the time, is, it's easy to kind of say, well, if we just take this extra bit once, right? And,
Right.
you know, in doing kind of, I didn't go through all the history, but in the late 1800s, it wasn't just Little Neck. There was land on Jeffrey's Neck, there were 2 house lots in Revere, and there was a school farm in Essex. It was all part of the Pfeffy's Trust, but those assets obviously got disposed of over time. And I don't know what happened to the proceeds, and, you know, what we ended up with was Little Neck. So I don't know that it's for me to say explicitly, but you know, that's the challenge with kind of dipping into an endowment, is it has very long-term implications.
And it seems the language around this trust and spending policies and so forth seem to really zero in on the protection of the original corpus.
Yep.
I mean, there's nothing that says, you know, if the distribution's $1 million today, there's nothing that says you couldn't, you know, defer half of that and kind of let it continue to grow and build up almost a reserve that you could then take out at one point. But I think kind of that's a little different than a one-time big supplemental drop.
I was basically going to say what Mark just said, is our responsibility is to give you money based on an algorithm that was put together at the beginning of the court decision. And we take virtually, other than what the court said, we take no position on how you spend the money. But one thought is that you don't spend all the money you get each year. You put some away, and it's available for a major project that you may want to undertake that might cost a little more than the amount you get in any one year. So that's...
Thank you.
But we are happy to continue investing those retained funds for your benefit. Like you said, the returns have been good. It means you don't have to do it, find another mechanism to do it, and it's available on request. We just need a reasonable period of time, probably a week or 2 at the most, to release those funds.
Can I ask a
Thank you.
clarifying? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just said thank you. Go ahead.
So if in any given year, or if there was sort of a strategic plan to do the suggestion you just made in terms of holding back a certain amount for allocation each year, could we give that back to you, as you said, to invest, and it would be earmarked for whatever that project would be? Okay.
That would need to, we don't really have a mechanism in our policy to do that yet,
I
but
know,
we
I'm
could.
thinking that's
Yeah.
Can I also just ask, before, when you were saying there were some monies that were not, I think, distributed, maybe you said during the COVID years, was that a line item on here that was
On
pointed?
page
The end.
3 or 4 of that.
Very bottom
Page
number, I
4.
think. So that 435, 370? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Again, it was initially 627, 213, and then you took 280 and
We
20.
took some back.
That's kind of my question. So that's just, that, when money is not spent and returned, it doesn't get,
Pardon me?
when money is returned, it doesn't go back into the corpus?
Yes, it does.
Oh, it does?
We just account for it separately.
I see, okay,
And it doesn't go into the calculation of the spending policy.
okay.
But it can accrue.
The only other thing, if you don't have any more questions, I wanted to mention, make a pitch for...
Do you speak into the microphone, just
Oh,
for the
sorry.
folks at home?
Sorry.
Thank you.
I wanted to make a pitch to the school committee that my term ends next August, as well as, I know, it seems like that's going to be 6 years. So start soliciting new Pfeffys for that slot. Mark, your finance committee?
I am.
And your
Select
you were select board, so it's only me for now. My term is up in June. I don't know whether there's a replacement yet or not. June or July. Okay. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple
Spend well.
comments. Thank you very much. This is super important, and I think it's important for you to know us and for us to know
Yes.
you and have a good relationship. I know when I met with Larry, we were talking about, I think you maybe felt like you had a lot of institutional knowledge about the Pfeffys, and there were some new people, and I was feeling like there was a lot of new people on the school committee at the time. So I think understanding what each other does and having that, you know, even if it's just once a year, come
I think
to
that
meet
makes
each
a lot
other
of sense.
is
We probably
nice.
should schedule something and pass on to our successors once a year.
Yeah, so sort of the end of the the end of the year in May or June, I think is a nice time to touch base.
It's nice to come when we know the dollar amount we're going to be
Right.
giving you
Yeah,
in a couple of weeks.
yeah,
Very
that
receptive.
helps. But another thing, oops, sorry. No, another thing Larry and I had talked about was just transparency in general, especially, I mean, it's important anyways because of the work that you do and we do. Transparency is important, but I think especially given the history of the FEFIs, just making sure, posting your minutes every quarter and your meetings. And so I think it seems like you're doing a good job of that on the town website, so just keeping up with
How long
that.
has everybody been in town here? No, it's-
I've been on school committee for 4.5 years. I've lived in town since 2002.
Okay, anybody else longer?
Lifers.
Everybody remembers all the bad words about the FEFIs now. This is the new FEFIs, not the old
Right, the old
FEFIs.
FEFIs.
Not to be, but still, you mention the name sometimes and you get people,
Right, yeah. So,
yeah, your point is well taken.
yeah,
though.
I think just really making sure that we,
Transparency. That was the big issue in the past,
Right.
transparency.
yeah, so I think, and it seems like you're posting your quarterly reports and all that, so that's great. And I appreciate you sharing documents. I think we've asked for your distribution policy, and you've been super responsive, so that's great.
Anything we have that you want.
Is yours.
Yeah,
you can share.
that's great. So yeah, just thank you. We have a FEFI policy working group that's been in place. This is our second year. So if you want to stay, we're going to talk about the changes that we've made to our FEFI policy, which is essentially what happens when we get the check between when
that'd
it
be
gets
interesting.
expended. So if you want to stay, we could cover that.
And feel
Sort
free
of
to
the
come to
highlights.
any of our meetings, bring unhealthy snacks though, okay? None of that stuff you're talking about.
It's after school, so we're all good, we're good.
More than 30 minutes after the end of school.
During the meeting. 30 minutes after, you're good.
And one other thing, I know there's been some conversation in the past about coming up with some way of sort of evaluating the success of the grants. Like that's, again, that's not our
Yep.
issue, but I'd love to hear if there's thought and
Yeah, we're going
progress
to talk
on that.
about that with our policy. That's something we actually worked on a lot, is we've always had this sort of end of grant reporting form that the grant recipients were supposed to fill out, but it didn't have like a closed loop, and so it didn't really happen, or sometimes it happened, but then it sometimes, so we tried to tighten that up. So it might take a year before we get those forms back, but we're going to collate them, put them in our newsletter, put them in the paper, send them to you. And that form includes things like, was it successful? And, are there any pictures you can share? And so our hope is to really close that loop and share all the good things that are happening with the money, because it's helping teachers. It's certainly helping students. I mean, I think when my kids started here in 2010, 11, 12 in the schools, there was no professional development at all. And field trips were tight. And so I think we've been able to do a lot of things in the last 15 years, largely due to the FEFIs, so.
Also
We
make
need to-
Matt Pulsifer very happy if you.
Yes, I will send him a personal report.
Legacy
'Cause, yeah, he's been ringing that bell for a long time, and he's right. We do need to advertise it more.
I have
Yes.
one question about, because in our policy that we're about to discuss, we're just trying to make sure all the timing aligns, and I think I have it right, but I just want to hear it. You have like a prediction in October, and then it's finalized in
Yes.
spring. Okay.
Yes, nothing official until March 31st, but as you could see, I think we predicted 1,080,000 back in October, and it ended up being 11,000 more than that, lots of market volatility, so that's the beauty of the rolling 12-quarter averages is, we can kind of make that prediction with a certain amount of certainty that we're in the right ballpark.
Okay, that's great.
We've learned in our business, never make a prediction about how much money to expect based on market conditions, especially if it ends up being less than what you told them. So that was a reasonable estimate, and just like I was explaining to Larry, even though the market value of the portfolio had declined by the end of March, the 12-quarter moving average, you had dropped a bad quarter at the beginning. And so the recent activity and market conditions affected it less than the improvement from the dropping of the first quarter.
Great.
The methodology makes sense.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
I just have one, just one really quick one. Do we send them the grants that are approved? Do you guys see that information?
Well, I saw what was in the paper. Is there anything other than that? No?
A slideshow that
What
they
would
put together.
So we just had, was at our last meeting, we get a presentation and we vote to approve or not the recommendations from the Pain Grant Committee, the TWIG. We're going to talk about them tonight. And then like Kate was saying, we're going to get better about getting a feedback form on them. What would be helpful to you for us to like incorporate into our flow to say, when we have our meeting, do you want an invite? Do you want just the slides? What's helpful for you all?
I think if you communicate it to us, and I can communicate, or my successor can communicate to the full board, kind of when you have that meeting, so if somebody wants to come, and then maybe just a list of the grants and what they're meant to achieve, once it's decided, I think people would find that interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to listen mode now. Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
again. Appreciate it.
All right, so we are going to take an item out of order. We're going to jump to the FEFI policy review and potential approval. So I'll have Kate walk us through that.
Okay.
Follow up from our last meeting.
So I apologize we don't have handouts. That would have been a good idea.
I know,
but we
there's so
don't.
many edits. Like,
So sorry. I know it's sort of, there's some track changes still. But if we review it tonight and approve it, even if we don't approve it, we can email you a copy. And it's in our policy manual, which is all on our district website, but it's a little tricky to find if you don't know how to navigate that. So we can email you the policy tomorrow. So, in short, FEFI's policy hasn't been reviewed in a number of years, essentially. So I guess last year, we decided to form a working group, which is like a short-term subcommittee to rehash this policy and just sort of revisit it, because it had been about 10-ish years since we'd started getting really consistent, even increasing distribution. So we wanted to sort of revisit the policy and make sure we're, using the money to the best way possible, and et cetera. So last year, I was not on it. There was a working group of 3 school committee members. They quickly realized it was a really big project. And several of those school committee members were pretty new, so I think it was more like an information gathering year. They learned a lot about the FEFIs and the process and what happened in the past, but didn't actually get to change the policy much.
I'm going to bring Sasha back in. He can
Yeah, where'd he go?
He wasn't able to be here because he worked for Fidelity, so.
Oh, okay. I was wondering where he went.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Went outside.
So Fidelity manages so he can't. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so that was last year. A lot of research, information gathering was done. So this year, we had all the information. So now we're going over the policy. So this past school year, we had the working group continue. We hit the ground running because we had all the information we needed, and we quickly realized before reviewing the policy, we really had to address the procedures around it. Laura, our wonderful executive assistant, or Dr. Blake's executive assistant, did a lot of the legwork around applications and hunting people down for applications and a lot of work. So we ended up spending most of the year on the procedural part. We updated the information on the district website about the FEFIs and how to apply, because we wanted to make sure the teachers all knew about it and the application process was as simple as possible, because if it's really cumbersome, teachers have a million things going on. If the application process is really cumbersome, they're not going to do it. And then what's the point? So we spent a lot of time revamping the website material to make sure it's concise. We revamped the application. We made a lot of things electronic, so there's like DocuSign for the superintendent and the principals that have to sign off on the application. So we spent a lot of time working on the procedures, which actually went very well with all of that. So that was the bulk of the year. And so we really only in the last few months really started looking at the policy. And I'll say, like, the heart of the policy didn't change. Like, it's still enrichment, it's still enhancement. We didn't change the definitions of those. In fact, we added definitions of those. So most of what we did with the policy was cleaning up some areas that were a little bit vague. Like, it wasn't clear, for example, what happens with expended funds? How do we access those? Where do they live? How do we get them back? It wasn't clear in the policy if the Payne Grant Committee, for example, who gets the presentations on the grants, if they don't pass something, if they don't want to move something forward, can the school committee still look at it, or is it sort of dead at that point? So that was vague, and that happened. So we didn't know what to do in that situation. So we wanted to address that in the policy. So we cleaned up a lot of that sort of vagueness. Can it fund staff positions? We had a lot of discussion around that. It cannot fund core programming, but what if sometimes there's something new or innovative, like a new program, like a new foreign language program, or we had a sort of a pilot computer science program a number of years ago where a staff position was funded through that because it was sort of a new, it wasn't something we had to teach as part of the core curriculum, but it was sort of a new initiative, so that was okay. So we put some language in around staff positions. So if the group would open up the policy, it looks like everybody's in there. We did discuss this also at a previous meeting, so I'm going to just look at the areas we have changed. So it says funds are not to be used for foundational budget needs, such as core academic programs, and we added in, unless it's a new curriculum or area under construction. So sometimes, again, we'll like pilot a new curriculum through a FEFI grant for a couple of years and then try to sort of, if it's successful, roll it into the budget. Let's see, we added, actually that last line that somebody highlighted, it's highlighted, other costs associated that are fundamental for educating students. We talked about that. We're okay to just take that out because it's a little bit vague. And it didn't mean, it didn't.
Are you like going through the edits?
I'm going through the edits.
Okay, perfect.
So this would be the first track change. So is everybody okay with deleting that?
Yeah, can I maybe ask just a little, it looks like all of them were resolved with the exception of one. Can we talk about that one? On page 2.
Revisit.
The note about unexpended funds.
Yep. Yep. Unexpended funds in any given year remain in the FEFI's line item account controlled by the town treasurer. And we had a note for you and you to look into this. Is that line accurate? It is, right?
It is not, and so that was the suggestion of either just broaden it or be super specific of what we're doing, which didn't feel appropriate for the policy. Because then we got to the accounting of it, that doesn't belong here.
Why is it not accurate?
Tom says it's accurate.
What's written
The
right
FEFI's
there,
line item is controlled by the-
unexpended funds in any given year remain in the FEFI's line item account controlled by the town treasurer.
That's accurate.
accurate.
It might not be relevant for the policy.
This is what we went through last time. We said that. So in the last meeting when we discussed this, we said that's not how the process works, right? Unless this was updated since then. That was our discussion
That
last
is how
time.
the
That's why it was
process works.
that's why it was highlighted to revisit.
This is an accurate statement, that we could, so the money, once received, is sent to the town. The town treasurer manages it on behalf of the school district, as he does really for all of our money. We open treasurer still maintains those dollars until instructed by the school committee, frankly, to maybe approve another grant, or at the end of the process, perhaps return the funds.
Okay.
We do not control, we, the school district, do not control the money
Yeah.
other than what's been approved by the school
have to
committee
ask
for
for
either
it,
Payne
right?
grants or Twig grants, or of course, the Manning Fund, the expenditure of that. So there are three things that we control within funding under the total allocation from FEFIs. The Manning Fund, the Payne grants as approved by the school committee, and the Twig grants also as approved by the school committee. If there's a difference between the aggregate of all of those together and what's been provided to the town, the treasurer still retains those funds.
Okay.
Do we need it
I'm
in the
good.
policy? Does it
Let's-
serve value in the policy, even if it's accurate?
I'm trying to find the notes from last time. I don't remember if this has either been changed. There was something specific in here that was not how it was done today. That's what I'm trying to go back to track. So maybe this has already been updated, or we took it out in the meeting?
Yeah, no, I think at the last
In the meeting?
there were an
Okay.
additional couple sentences
That's why I thought it was still
that were not
highlighted.
accurate.
Okay, so that's what I was looking for. Thank you, then I'm good. So now with,
There are unexpended funds that were still active. You went through the sort of the
yeah.
details of how that
Okay,
works. So think
I thought that's why the note was there,
This
because
has
it
been
wasn't.
amended.
That was my
a couple
first
of
question.
revisions
Okay,
since
maybe you didn't
the-
hear that. Yes, then I'm good.
What
Okay.
remains is accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
And
was-
it is a Google Doc, so
Okay.
we, if
No,
you
I'm
want to
good
go
with
back
it.
and
I
hunt
wanted to
for
make sure that it
revisions, it's all
was-
there.
That's why I thought the notes
Okay.
still, or your comment of, we still need to update it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so we're good.
just Should have deleted
Can I ask a
that,
question
yeah.
about what happens in those instances, though? I think when the money is unspent and it's sitting with the town treasurer, is there a certain point in the year where we typically would say, okay, like what we were talking about before, can that money go back? Can it be reinvested? Can it be earmarked? Like, where is that captured here? What that process would look like?
So I think it is captured in this revision further on down in that same paragraph, beginning with the word additionally. Additionally, if there are unexpended funds available at the end of the grant period, meaning the end of the year, right?
To be used for.
The director of finance and the superintendent should consult with the school committee effectively on what to do. And that's where I was referring to, perhaps we could open up an additional grant application. We could apply those funds to maybe if something came in higher in cost than which is going to be happening, right? Because the teachers and administrators write the grants. Sometimes by the time they spend them, it's 12, 14 months later. So there is going to be and Brian and I have talked about this. I have tried to maintain, working with the town, to have a little bit of a buffer, especially for things that we know are going to be variable, the cost of shipping and variety of things like that do change in the course of 12 to 14 months of expending the life of the grant. But if there's a larger a dollar amount, I would think that we would obviously bring that back to the committee to say, what should we do with that?
This is related. I think it came up the same time last year when we were talking about the allocation of funds over a number of years for the sports, the field house, where those funds, had been given, but we weren't ready to spend because we needed to continue to raise funds. So is there something that captures where, again, that money could be sent back because it can accrue interest until we're ready to spend, like what we were talking about before?
So that's a terrific example, actually. I wish I thought of it, thanks, of how the town treasurer maintains those funds. So the funds over the years that have been set aside for the field house retain under the treasurer's control, and he actually invests them.
They are incurring interest, yeah.
So there is an investment, mechanism, because once the FEFIs give the town, they become the municipal asset, and the treasurer is the trustee of municipal funds.
Is
So
there
he does, and through his investment strategies, so those funds are all
kind of
with
a
him.
review of his investments versus the FEFI's investments to make sure that that money is yielding as much as it could?
Not on our part. Town would do that.
Okay.
But perhaps we could ask the treasurer to come to a subsequent meeting and explain, or share what his strategy is. but
Or at
that's-
least like have an
that's within
annual
his domain,
reporting,
though.
you know, the same way you guys are producing annual reports where we see something like that.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like in reference to what you mentioned as the 435,370 left over, then not used during COVID, it's sitting in the fund. So there's money there, and then there's money, yeah, with the town treasurer, and I feel like we need to close the loop on where it sits if it's not being used from year to year. Right. Maybe that's I don't know how it pertains to this policy, but it seems like that was a very clear to me that there's money here that wasn't used and given back, and then money given back, right, that sits with the town.
Where's the most beneficial?
Distributed before June 30th of the year. If you need, for some reason, to send it back, that's okay.
I think one of the distinctions that may be made, to your point, Jen, is that the 435,000, I don't think that was, and I wasn't here at the time, but I don't think that was approved for a particular project, which is probably why the Feffes have retained it, as opposed to the Fieldhouse project, which has gone through a cycle of applications and approvals by the Payne Committee, approvals by the previous school committee. That's my sort of speculation. Now, that's not to say that who would be the better investor. We can dig into that a bit. I don't know the answer to that off the top.
I guess the question would be, if it goes back to the Feffes, is it still earmarked for the field house building? That's.
It is.
That's the.
Yep.
Sorry. Okay.
I don't think it would be because once it goes back to them, it goes back into their corpus.
Okay, that's what I
And
was
just a
wondering.
separate dollar line item that we gave them back X number of dollars.
Okay.
On the town side, the town has a line item for
Okay.
every fund.
Okay, so that's the
it would be
difference
accounted.
there, okay. All right.
I thought I asked that before. Like, if that money gets sent back, you can't earmark it.
They don't earmark things.
I mean, if we return that money to you, it's up to you to decide.
The total allocation that we're giving them back goes into a separate line item that they're accounting. They're not accounting for each individual account. So if I give them $1,000 this year and I give them $1,000 next year, it's not appearing in two different lines. It's $2,000. They don't care where it came from or where it's going to, other than they're going to give us it back to us when we want it.
If we need it, yep.
But the town has individual line items that this is $1,000, this is a different $1,000, and this is the purpose for it. So it's very specific in that regard.
Thank you for
on the
clarifying.
town
It's a big
side.
distinction.
I think the bigger question is, we want to make sure we're getting the highest possible return on that money at any given point in time. Maybe as a follow-up, let's understand how big of a pool we're actually talking about. So as a follow-up, we can see how long is that, any money, once it's been distributed, is it sitting? If on average it's sitting for a month, we're not losing any money on it.
Right,
If it's on average it's sitting for 3 years, of course it's a problem. We know that's not the case, but we could take that as a follow-up and bring it up in budget subcommittee and to bring back here to say, here's approximately what we're talking about, and kind of handle it that way.
Yeah, it's a good
I mean,
idea.
you're going to see it, this may be a great time to talk about it. You've seen in the last probably 5 or 6 monthly reports I provide on revolving fund balances. We're sitting with $317,000 in the Feffes line that has been provided to the school district, but is not charged to any particular project.
And it's earning interest.
And it's earning interest because the town treasurer is controlling that. But that may be to your point.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
But you have
Where
seen
that
that on the
difference is.
last 5 or 6 monthly reports.
Yep.
So from a policy perspective,
Thank you. Okay, good discussions, and we can follow up on some of this. So the next paragraph we added is this concept of carving out monies prior to the twig pane distribution for, this policy allows us the option to do that. a portion of the annual distribution for ongoing enrichment projects that have been repeatedly funded through paying grants and regularly run in the district. I took out proven success, because to Sasha's point, what's that? So proven success is just words that are hard to quantify, such as professional development and place-based learning. I feel like these examples need to stay in here, because if we don't, it could send the message that we could just carve out 80% for whatever we want. So I think I don't think it's gonna, we might not do it. It could be an annual discussion every year, but the spirit of it was there are grants that have been submitted for 6, 7, 8 years, such as place-based learning, which is field trips essentially.
Kinder Swim.
Kinder Swim, we have an amazing kindergarten swim program. I think we're one of the only districts in this area that offers free swimming lessons for our kindergartens, because Dr. Blake started it and thought it was an important initiative, and it's been successful. It's funded every year. And professional development, this isn't all of the professional development, but certain parts of professional development have regularly, and I would say successfully, been funded from the FEFI. So possibly we could sort of take that off the top as something we know we're going to do every year, but not necessarily it will be an annual discussion of whether we want to do that or not. So it just introduces the option. There are some logistics to that that would need to be hashed out, but the edits that I have, I replaced proven success with that have been repeatedly funded and regularly run in the district, such as professional development and place-based learning. How do we have objections to those?
Sounds good.
Good.
Diana has a comment about in the overview of grants. So we used to talk all about TWIG grants and all about paying grants, but we decided to pull all things that were the same. So it was just less redundancy into this sort of overview of grants section. So I guess the question from Diana was, does the superintendent of schools have the final endorsement of TWIG grants as well?
Dr. Blake?
Ryan?
I'm sorry.
Do you have, that's okay. Do you have
Do you look at TWIG grants?
final endorsement of all grants or
I
just
review
paying?
all of the grants,
You review
yes.
all.
All right.
Okay.
Clear it. Next. I can take this next section because I
Yeah,
did it.
that'd be great.
We just aligned the wording for the paying grants to the paying rubric, so these suggested changes reflect the TWIG rubric. Make
Yeah,
it
so all this stuff
similar to the
that's
pain
crossed out
section.
in pink is, we don't talk about it for pain, so we don't, I think there's just some stuff we don't need to get into in the policy because it's in the rubric already that the grant committees follow.
All good?
TWIG rubric
Okay.
is the same. Are you doing it?
So I'll clean up that section. I also, you both cleaned it up. I added that last piece for both TWIG and PAIN to link to the rubric, which I'd like to just pop over to after we finish this policy, because I just lifted some of the wording from the policy into the rubric. So if you're on the committee and you don't have the policy in front of you, but you have the rubric as you're going through it, it gives you just kind of the highlights. Next.
Okay, so in the TWIG committee membership, we just added in the building administrator. The TWIG grant folks are not appointed by us. Well, the community members are, but the staff positions are appointed by the principals. Not they're appointed, I think they ask their staff who's interested. And then once their term is up, they could be reappointed by the principal. So we just wanted to clarify that.
So can the at-large community representative, can it say that the school committee appoints? And they have to reapply at the end of each term? Is that something we should say, is my question?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
How about building administrators may appoint and reappoint staff positions while the school committee appoints citizen members?
Yeah.
Citizen members.
But that they must reapply after their end of the term. They're not like automatically renewed.
For a term of 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years?
Sounds good.
That, okay?
I have a question, but I think we're going back up, and I'm sorry. Under twig overview, third paragraph starts, educators working alone or together may include a proposed stipend payment.
Yeah.
I know later in the meeting, we're going to go over the twig grants that were approved this year, and this came up, there was a grant that was denied because it was only a stipend. And we kind of looked at it like, I don't know any other way that this could happen. It's just a, you know, a preseason coach would do a conditioning,
Yeah.
and it would
Good night.
be that.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's kind of like the manpower, like, other than running a conditioning, like, there's nothing to purchase, it's not a curriculum. So I just think it's noteworthy to know that this kind of came up and then something was denied that.
It's interesting, because that was, I believe, that wasn't new, that was in there, right?
That was in there.
Yeah, that's
And this
been in
came up
there.
and got rejected last year, too. It's the second year it's been rejected, a conditioning
It
program.
was brought up, we
think.
talked about it, Dr. Blake, with the athletic director, and just, it's right in the policy. You shouldn't be applying, writing the grant with that in mind unless it fits. But I also wonder if we're missing out on grant opportunities that are worthy where it is only a stipend that requires it.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. I
That's a bigger
think it's,
discussion.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
a bigger
it's a bigger
discussion and a
discussion.
slippery slope because
It's a slippery slope, I agree.
stipends.
Yeah, I don't have the answer, but
Yeah, no, it's something to think about. I wonder if that grant
We
could,
talked also about maybe revisiting, we really focused on pain this year,
Yeah.
and that twig was going to be what we
yeah.
dig into,
yeah.
next
I
year.
think this is a, like, I don't want to address this policy every year, but I think we should do it before 10 years, for sure. And we could, the policy committee could look at it and make little tweaks.
Yeah, it has to
Versus
come up
this
every
was like,
3 years.
you know,
at
every 3
least.
years,
Yeah.
all policy gets reviewed, so we could make little tweaks like that.
We could do one-offs too if we wanted, so keep it in mind.
Okay. I think that's, Somebody
You have
type
one other a couple more comments.
I think this was a Sasha comment? But I'm not sure. Staff positions may be funded by a paying grant, provided that positions directly support FE-funded initiatives. I think the overriding, this shouldn't contradict the overriding philosophy that it can't fund core programs. So I think by definition, if it's going to fund a staff position, it has to be a staff position that's tied to something that's enrichment and enhancement. So I'm okay with that wording, but
Yeah, and I think the definition of enhancement does include like new standards. So that it may be a new standard for something that's core, I guess, right? But like, that the idea is that it's new. So is there worth saying anything, clarifying there that would be like a, 1 to 2 year basis or something like that, so that it, again, if it is kind of towing the line between enhancement, but also that it is for, that there's a cap on that, I guess.
There's something in there about the 2 years, right?
I don't think so. I think we didn't want to put it, well, it says compensation for positions initially funded by FEFI funding may be extended at the discretion of the superintendent. working in collaboration with the school committee. So that kind of gives us an out if we wanted to, but the expectation when you apply for a paying grant that includes a staff position is you're supposed to say the intended duration of the staff position. Like, for example, there's a paying grant this year for a dance and drama teacher with an expectation of a 2-year position. But we didn't feel comfortable putting a time limit in the policy.
Just to go back to this last one, FE's funded initiative is the only place that you reference that. The discussion last time, it said, referring to support FE's funded initiatives, say that the position directly supports the mission, because the mission captures the specific intentions. Initiative is just, it's the only place you reference it, so it's not, we don't have a definition of initiatives.
How about staff position, oops, I just hit the wrong button.
Where are you
Staff
right now?
pos-
Sorry.
In the William Payne Enhancement Grants overview section, the second paragraph, first sentence, provided the position directly supports FEFI-funded initiatives. We don't define FEFI-funded initiatives. The only place that references that, or uses that term. Last time the suggestion was positions directly support the mission, because the mission is defined.
The FEFI's mission?
Sure.
Would that make sense? So how does this look? Staff positions may be funded by a paying grant provided that positions directly support the FEFI's mission.
The mission of the FEFI's trust?
It's not the trust, it's what we say above in our policy,
Okay, it's fine. Okay, I like it, great.
which is from the trust,
Next.
so.
Hang on, before you drop into the next, assuming we're dropping down to the next comment here, in the paying grant committee membership and grant review process, is that where we're going next?
Yeah.
Just above that, where we're talking about terms, and we're saying that there is no limit on the duration, so how does that work? Like whoever's chairing the committee, if someone's term is up, they would just verbally or ask, hey, do you want to keep going? And if they say yes, do we then get another 2-year commitment out of it, or is it just an annual basis at that point? That came up this year, so I think.
I think they need to be reappointed by us at a meeting.
I got it, thanks.
Okay, so I think we should say
If
that.
it's a community, like if a community member that we appoint is done, and we reach out to like Penny DeVoe and say, would you like to do another 2 years? And she says yes. I don't think she needs to reapply or come make her case. I think we could reappoint her at the school committee meeting. I think she should be officially reappointed, though.
I think that.
Whereas, sorry, administrators can reappoint the staff members
Yeah.
on their own.
But the outlier would be like an elementary parent, right? If they were on year 3, then they don't, but they had a 5th grader, then they might fall off, but they could potentially reapply for another position.
Vicky.
I think we'll just kind of have to, again, I think we're going to try to get it to like the 99%, and then we might have some things that we need to tweak and reassess, but there's going to be things we can't anticipate or we'll have to deal with as they come.
I mean, I think we can articulate that we would reappoint. That would be helpful to, right? There shall be no limit duration.
You're gonna put in a sentence for us to
Yeah.
consider.
We can move on while I'm thinking. No, we'll have to move on. I keep you on the spot. I'll think about it and add it in.
Oh, that was too
All right, Sasha had made a comment to reword a sentence, so I just popped it in as a suggested change.
Which one? Which sentence?
It's under paying grant committee membership and grant review process.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
That sounds better.
I think just clarifies it. Everybody good?
Oh, the if a grant is not.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep, that's
Okay.
good.
The shall not be deemed is a little
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna just
that's
clean
good.
that up.
1660s language.
All right, so Haley, you're adding something somewhere. Where are you typing?
In my own document while I drafted in my mind.
Okay, just send it, just put it in track changes so we can see it.
Yeah, I will.
While she's doing that, you want to pop over to, or does anybody have anything else on the policy?
Nope.
All right, let's pop over to the rubrics, just so you can, again, it wasn't anything super material that was changed, but we'll start with the twig rubric. Oh, why isn't it opening big? So we saw this with the pain rubric. There was like this whole section of yes, no, and we're like, what does that mean? It didn't really assign a number value to it. So I got rid of that and added this disclaimer that we put on the pain rubric, and then you can see that that language, although is that the sentence that we deleted?
You put these in the folder?
No, it's linked in the document. I'm gonna take out the sentence that we deleted. There we go. And yeah, with the twig, the only thing, I know you raise a good point, Jen, but for now I did keep the yes, no about the stipend amount, because for now we're just gonna leave that. But basically just added all that kind of disclaimer information at the beginning, directly from the policy.
Well, the thought is that it wouldn't get past the superintendent if it didn't.
Thank you. What's that?
It wouldn't get past the superintendent
Right.
if it didn't, like it was something totally out of left field that wasn't enrichment or enhancement. It wouldn't even get to the committee because it wouldn't pass your screen.
All right. Any?
Good in the, oh, sorry, you're going to go to the pain grant application.
Oh, it's okay. I'm in twig, but pain is basically the same. So Laura, we can talk afterwards, but these are like copies of documents, and they'll need to be non-editable and whatever, but.
In the pain grant, can I remove the last bullet?
Yes.
That we took out?
Yep,
Okay,
I didn't get in there yet, but yep.
Okay, sorry.
I did it in twig, but I haven't got to pain, so that's
Got it.
great.
It's all yours.
Thank you. Oh, you want me to do it? Okay.
Yep.
All right, and then Haley, did you pop your sentence in?
I'm in. Did you put it in track changes?
Oh, no, I just dropped it in.
Oh, can you tell? I don't know.
Okay, you can
I lost
highlight it, just so we can see it.
Oh, perfect. If at the end of
Okay.
their term, a committee member highlighted.
Oh, yeah, I see it. All right.
How about the school committee may reappoint? Because what if they did a horrible job?
But we have to give
Or,
the opportunity.
I don't know. Right, we may appoint them, but we may
Okay.
not.
May.
Right, but I mean, I think we should give the opportunity to the public who want to maybe jump on,
Right.
to have them reapply.
I'm good with this.
Open
Good
it up.
with it?
I am too.
All good?
I move to approve the FEFD's distribution policy DDA as discussed.
Manipulated tonight.
Second. Moved by Sasha, second by Jenny, for the discussion. All in favor?
Big one.
So exciting.
That's a big one. Good
Good
job,
job, guys. That was a
Yes.
big
work.
undertaking.
motion passes.
All right. I apologize I didn't
a
have
lot.
copies. I will email you, all of you, a copy tomorrow.
I'm going to ask if we can take the student rep
Yep.
report out of order, please. Typically, Jack, welcome aboard.
This is a big
But
one.
typically, 9 o'clock,
you, you too.
the student reps historically have been allowed to leave. Completely
allowed
up
to
to
leave
you.
whenever.
Charlie, like to stay and,
Told me it's interesting after.
okay, yeah. So
41
completely
minutes
up to
late
you,
on
but I
that.
just want to make sure that you're aware of that, so.
And I apologize. If I had known we were going to be running this far back, I would have asked you to speak earlier. So, yeah, if you would like to introduce yourself and share anything you have on behalf of the student body of the district, this is your time.
Yeah, well, I'm Jack Mahayek, as you probably know already. So I guess I'll start off. I have two siblings. I have my younger sister, who's in 8th grade. She's in Washington, D.C. right now. Then I have my younger brother, Nicholas. He's in 5th grade, so he'll be coming up to the middle school next year. I play lacrosse, I play football, and I swim. I'm on the school council, and there's not a lot else to say. We'll keep it short. As far as on behalf of the student body, I think a lot of the concerns are with lunch. A lot of it's the portion sizes. I don't know if that's something that can be changed because I know with like the wellness policy stuff like that, it's state and federal requirements. A lot of
Large, too small?
too small. Yeah.
Okay.
Like a lot of kids will have someone else go get their lunch and give it to them if they like bring a lunch from home. So I don't know if there's something that can be done with that. I don't know if it's really a funding thing or if it's a state requirement that you can't really get around.
Interesting.
Other than that, people want the paper towels back in the bathrooms. I understand the reason for not having them in the bathrooms because there's a few people ruin it for the rest of everyone else. But maybe putting them outside the bathrooms, so people wanted to use them, but then it's not like right there tempting people.
Not a bad idea.
I don't think there's a lot of other concerns. Not really. Everything's going good. Yeah, we got lacrosse. We'll probably have to go to Nantucket.
When they know that you're the
I've asked some people, and they say everything's
Good.
good for now. I know there has been a good amount of pushback on the thing about R blocks with having the clubs meetings. So I don't know. I mean, I don't really know the reasoning completely behind that. I don't know if there's a way
about that.
around it. But I don't know if there's something, maybe a kind of middle ground we could come to. But I think that's probably the overall concern. I think the bake sales, that was a concern, but I think people will understand that it's a state law. You can't really go around that. It's not really up to us, I guess. And then maybe, I know there's a newsletter that goes out from the school committee, but maybe, I don't know if I need permission to do this, but if I created one just for like students in the high school anyway, that kind of maybe more layman's terms. 'Cause I think a lot of people don't completely understand the stuff that happens with stuff like the club band. They don't always know what's going on, what the reasoning are behind that, myself included. Things like the bake sales that a lot of people look at the school committee and are like, oh, what are they doing this for? But there's a reasoning behind it, which, I mean, when you sent me those links, I could understand it then. That it's a law. Has to be in. I guess.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea, too.
I think that's,
That's not have a lot of.
bring that to communications, yeah, and keep that discussion going. I love that idea.
I have not been just playing games on my phone.
No.
I forgot my MacBook in my car, so
Sorry, did you say what year you are? If I missed it, I'm sorry.
I'm a junior.
You're a junior.
Yeah,
You're
I'll be a
junior now, so
senior
you're rising
next
senior.
year.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Right. Right. Excitement begin, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
We're
thank
happy to have
Jack.
you, and let us
Yeah,
know
thank
if you
you.
have
Welcome.
questions and things. We could maybe give you a little section in the school committee newsletter, like a little
You're more
update
than
from
welcome to stay.
student.
Yeah.
I find it all interesting. It's,
Right.
Yeah. And all this stuff, I never knew anything about the pain gramps or the FEFIs, stuff like that, which it's interesting to know about.
Lots to learn.
Jack, welcome. You may not know about the subcommittees that we have. I don't know if you've seen the list yet. One of them is the communications subcommittee, where we're talking about just general community engagement. Maybe in our next one in the fall, you could join us for one of those. We could talk about what's the right way to share information back with the students, what's out there in place now, you could add to, but that could be a follow-up conversation for us. We'd be happy to have.
Yeah, I think I definitely, I know there's a lot of subcommittees. I don't know what all of them are. But I know Charlie said that there's some interesting things that happen in those too. So that'd be something I'd be interested in.
Yeah, take you through it, absolutely.
Excellent. All right.
All right.
We have a lot on the agenda, but I really think we got through the really heavy stuff. That said, I'm open if anybody would like to make a motion to recess, unless people want to power through.
Motion to recess. Just
Recess.
5 minutes, just
Okay.
quick.
5 minutes?
Sure. Okay, so moved by Haley, second by Jen. All in favor? Okay, so we are going to recess, and we'll return to our meeting in approximately 5 minutes when I call us back to order. where are we? Superintendent's administrative report.
So my report is in your packet this evening. I'm just going to highlight just a couple of things in the interest of time. Gladly answer any questions that folks might have. A lot of time has been spent over the last couple of weeks trying to manage the ongoing issues with the air conditioning here at the high school, middle high school. Good news is they were able to finally diagnose it. It was the main board, main computer board for the chiller that was fried. And so we ordered one. It's supposed to be in tomorrow morning, and the repair will be made tomorrow during the day, and hopefully we will be in good shape for the weekend. Last week, I just saw it highlighted by somebody. Last week, I spent a good couple of hours preparing for that safety and security forum, and I only had one parent show up. So that was not a good use of time. He and I had a good conversation for about 15 minutes, and then we went our separate ways. You can see all the activities that have been going on. I talked last week, well, the last couple of weeks they've been interviewing for the assistant principal at the Winthrop School. I did the final interviews last week. We've offered the position. There'll be an announcement coming soon. Next week, the last full week of school already. Kind of snuck up on us a little bit. Green Beach Day is next Thursday. Rain date is Friday, and then the final day of school will be Monday, June 16th. Two things that I do want to address at our last meeting, and it was just brought up earlier by Jack. The speaker inquired about R Block at the high school and the ability to run clubs during that time. So the issue there is it's something that we're exploring how to resolve, but all of our teachers are paid for a workday. The clubs are in addition to their workday, and they receive stipends for them. So essentially, if we're allowing clubs to run during our block, they're double dipping.
Oh, right.
Which is not okay. And so we're trying to figure out how to make that work for students. The other piece of it, and I included in here, we're concerned about students being oversubscribed and like how many activities and things they're involved in. The original intent for our block was for some supplemental class time, students that need additional assistance, things like that. It's also when they do some of their rehearsals and stuff as well. So that's an administrative issue that we're trying to work through to find a happy medium to meet the needs of the kids, as well as the contractual issues with the teaching staff.
Is that the impetus of it, like the
It
double
is.
dipping? Is that the foundation of why it was?
In part, yes. Because it's, the teacher workday is assigned. They're very particular about the hours of the day, and our block falls during that time when they should be available for kids for additional assistance and who need it in classes, etc. And then, the clubs should be run before and after school, hence the stipend.
Right.
We pay them for their extra work. So we're trying to find the happy medium there.
You have non-stipended clubs too, or are they all stipended?
Oh, no. Every club is stipended if it's, like the first year, there's language that it can be run without a stipend, but then it becomes, if it's successful, then it becomes a paid stipend.
I
think the biggest point you just mentioned about how teachers should be available during that block for kids coming back for extra help, to me, that's the biggest reason why, in my opinion, they should be not during that block.
But I do think the students had a lot of good points, that some kids want to do multiple things, and we don't want to create a situation where kids can do clubs or sports, because I think the district bends over backwards for kids to be able to do sports and athletics, or sports as athletics, sorry, sports and music. So if there's a middle ground where we could try to, I don't know, find something. Because, I mean, like what the parent teacher from DECA came in and said, you know, on our block, they get this many kids, and then after school, they get, you know, 2 kids. So it's hard, because you want the clubs to thrive, and you want the kids who want to join lots of things have that opportunity. I don't know. So I see both sides.
And then the other issue that I wanted to, and that issue's not resolved yet.
Yeah,
It's an ongoing administrative conversation, so we'll continue to work at it. And then the only other issue I wanted to address was the graffiti and the racial slurs that were found on they were actually found on the Winthrop playground, but there was a separate incident earlier on that was actually at Bilek Park. But the situation on the Winthrop playground, the people involved were identified by the police. They are, you know, we've basically banned them from the playground after school. No trespass, basically. They've been identified. They're doing community service. All the graffiti's been removed, so I like to think that we're on the other side of that particular graffiti issue.
Is there any, like, I don't know, training, or I don't know, something that, training isn't the right word, but something that they can participate in to do some sort of learning and education around the impact of that? You know, like, it's not just, you can't go there anymore, which is punitive, obviously, but it's something to kind of help broaden their perspective. And is that something that could be taken into consideration?
School-wide or just for those individuals?
For those, I mean, sure, school-wide, but I mean, I guess, you know, it's sort of, if there's a targeted need, right, for, presumably there's, right?
Cultural.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure, I know that's not up to us, but I don't know if that's something that, how that's sort of adjudicated.
Yeah, I think we would have to do something as a whole school. And Diana was just pointing to an email that we received. We're looking, the North Shore AACP has reached out to they want to have a conversation with us, just around what kind of resources they can provide to us. We're going to have that conversation. We're trying to arrange schedules and times with them, because they're only part-time. So we'll look at that. Any other questions in my report? There's a lot there. What's been happening the last couple of weeks. It's been a whirlwind. The good news is the new facilities director starts on Monday morning. He's already been in to do paperwork. We haven't scared him away yet. So a chunk of my Monday will be spent with him, just getting him oriented to the district. Tom and I have been actively working on setting up all of the projects for the summer and just working out the construction schedules and things so that we can make sure everything is underway. The flooring company that's going to finish the floor project here in the rotunda, they're starting like 2 days after school gets out. So we're jumping right on it so that we can get it done and make sure that things are done in time for school.
this is not included
on.
here, but that made me think of it, the flooring, with I know there was the classroom in Winthrop, at the Winthrop school, that had the issue that needed to be vacated and all the flooring. I think that at the time, that there was sort of a question mark if any of the other classrooms down that end could have.
We're all set there.
It's all, okay. And what about the classroom at Doyon that was closed?
Dealt with over the summer as well.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, subcommittee working group liaison reports. Let's jump to communications, probably starting with the newsletter.
That'd be great.
Okay,
A letter from the chair will be written and included.
progress. Mentally.
We haven't gone through, but you can take a look now. A little preview of the TWIG grant recipients. Structured this similar to last month with the Payne grant, listing what it was, and in particular, which students benefit from it. We have our ongoing elementary building project update. In particular, we kick things off in July. Super excited about that. And last month, we published initial materials on the district website. So a couple things that are there. More importantly, that's where we'll continue to make more and more information available as we move forward. There's a placeholder for more information about free reduced, or I think it's just free lunch over the summer, which has been available in the spirit of the safety updates. Felt like this was the appropriate one for the summer to make sure and reinforce that there is, and to reinforce awareness. We'll include the blurb, we just want to make sure we have the correct, accurate information to include in there. Our usual roundup of activities and accomplishments from this evening, some to be completed. And then no specific upcoming district events listed. This will go out on June 17th. So at that point, all events, including town meeting, will have passed. So instead, we're including a link to the 25-26 school calendar.
Maybe one thing, upcoming district events, well, I don't know if this would be, but put our summer meeting, our summer dinner meeting on the, I don't know if
yeah.
that would be, just,
Yes, hadn't thought about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
The email at the bottom. Just maybe don't underline it because you can't see the underscore. And even though it's a link, see school committee see where that is?
Yeah.
Is yours underlined? Maybe don't underline it because you can't see the underscore. And because when I get those, I click on them and I have Gmail and it doesn't.
I think it's going to probably be how it's formatted when you put it in your system. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you can't do anything about that.
Hyperlink it, though, you can remove the underline.
You can remove the link, but
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
We'll
Right.
sort it out when we put it in. It's good
Okay.
feedback, especially if people aren't able to access it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Jenna.
All right.
The
Thank
other-
you.
you could say, please email us link here or something,
Yeah,
and then the
just
here
because
is the
for
link.
some reason, when I click on things, it doesn't work. Then the link to the, or maybe this is too much detail. The school building committee lists the categories of members. Is that too much detail? Or provide a
it's a
link
lot
to
of
the
detail.
information?
Wait,
So
where?
people
Oh.
can
Where does it say?
apply?
I think that's going to be down, I think that'd be
Okay,
a lot
this
to
is
put
just a
here, like a little,
upcoming.
yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
we don't do that like on
Whistle.
July 1st, so
Yeah.
we're also just not ready for it.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
While we're on communications,
Oh, this? Oh, yeah. Clean that up. Yeah, yeah.
move to approve the meeting minutes.
Oh, you want to do that now?
Yeah,
Or
is
you
that
don't
what
wanna
we're
do
doing?
it?
Wanna do it later?
Let's do later.
Let's do later.
Okay. Okay, great.
Couple hours.
Great idea.
That's it for
I think it
communications.
Well done,
great.
okay. Athletic, do you have a quick update that you want to do?
Quick update, athletic policy working group. We met 2 weeks ago. This was our last meeting. And we're meeting again this coming Tuesday. We're trying to wrap things up to at least get some finality to hit the ground running next year with either a subcommittee of a different form. Put it that way.
More to come, great. IEF?
Yep. I
Embarrassingly missed the meeting. It
Yep,
was on
no,
a Tuesday, not a Monday this time.
I don't have a whole lot to report, but I did attend, and they reviewed a number of grant opportunities that were presented to them, made some changes to them, and had a lot of questions on the grants that were submitted. Also talked about fundraising efforts and potentially working with an outside organization to help guide their fundraising efforts and give them strategies for how to go out and get money, for lack of a better way to say it. That was the last meeting for the school year. I think they're going to meet again late August.
Okay, great.
I think I asked this last time, I'm sorry, I don't remember the answer, but does EBSCO still give like a big allocation to them on there? They don't do that anymore?
I don't think so.
No.
Does EBSCO accept grants directly? Because they hadn't for a long time because they were doing that. No, yeah.
I could probably find out.
Yeah, it'd be good to know.
Yeah, I want to ask about that.
So the turf fieldhouse committee met just last night, and it is timely to say this. The $140,000 that we were kind of saying, the pain grant money that you need to use by a certain date, and then they asked for an extension. That work is starting on June 18th and will be done this summer. So they're literally putting electric and plumbing right out to the site and pouring a foundation. And I'm looking at Tom, and the other thing that was very apparent at the committee meeting last night was the gratitude that this committee has for Tom Markham, who has walked them through the financial process of being able to spend the money.
Well done. Thank you. All right, anybody else have anything to report on? Great, moving on.
I just shared the subcommittee list with Jack.
Oh, thank you. I was going to do that. but I
So
haven't gotten there
you
yet.
can see
Appreciate
who
it.
was on, what they are, and then who's been on what.
Perfect, thank you. All right, finance report.
You have your, in your folder, your, two of the monthly reports that you're used to. One is how we closed the end of May. You'll see if you look at page 25, just cutting to the chase, there's just around 9.5% of the budget left. Just a little north of $3.7 million. Out of that will come the $850,000 that will be contributed to the stabilization fund. We have two remaining pay periods, including the balloon payment, so to speak, for teachers, which will occur next Thursday. And the budget is performing, to plan. So we are in good shape to close in accordance with the town procedures, as well as all of the guidelines, outlined in opening the budget. The other report that you have is the end of May report on the stabilization funds, revolving funds, and gift funds. Looking at that, you'll see obviously the first line there, what I mentioned when we were discussing FEFIs. There's $317,559 that is unattached, if you will, to any PAIN or TWIG grants for fiscal year '25. So we will have a decision to make around that come the close of the year or the opening of the new year. We maintain some hefty balances where we're intended to, but as reported last month and in prior months, we will not hit some of the larger balances with offsetting utilities costs until actually closing the budget. So certainly at my next report, you'll be able to see things like EDP and food services, which are the two largest contributors to offsets for school facilities, such as utilities and such. as we'll also charge off all of the expenses to a circuit breaker that are allowable and expected by both the budget as well as expected under state mandate. So we're in good shape as we're about to close the year with 24 days. Today's the 6th, right? So 25 days.
Excellent. Questions for Tom? Okay. Jen, can you give us a quick summary on the TWIGs?
So the TWIG grants from this spring are in your folder, a list of them. Really great across the district representation of what was applied for. To highlight, there's a greenhouse going in at the middle school, which is super exciting. A lot of the other ones are just direct classroom, innovative ideas. I will point out that last on the list is a world language after-school enrichment program, which is the replacement for world language in the elementary school. So that made it through.
Is that just a stipend to fund someone running that, or do you know who's gonna? Just curious.
I can pull it up and let you know.
That's okay.
I know it met all the criteria.
Okay. No, I'm glad they're doing that.
Question.
That's great.
There must be, I would imagine there's like a program.
Thank you. Looks great.
So it's run by a consultant program. So it's a block, it's like a curriculum, Global Child.
Is it for the year, like a program for the full year?
Hold on. Grant would support the implementation world language after-school enrichment program at both elementary schools integrated into the existing ACE and DEEP programs.
Which are like 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Programs twice a year. I think. Cool. That's good.
I see coaches professional development. Is that something that we've seen before? Okay, well, I mean, I think we've been talking a lot about athletics, so I was like, oh, that, like, a lot of things we've been talking about, like, are showing up on this list, so it's exciting to see.
And it was kind of happening at the same time coincidentally. I'm in both of those areas, but it was something on the wish list from our athletic director, and grant was written, and it's very exciting.
And we're very fortunate to have these opportunities. And then I had a question related to policy. I heard you give a reason for one of there were 2 grants that weren't approved. It looks like one was a stipend situation. And then for the other, I was just wondering, was it due to the, like, ratings from the rubric, or was it cost? Anything overarching that, like, hits the policy we just reviewed?
Yeah, so it didn't hit the mark on the rubric, and the same classroom above applied for flexible seating, and this was just outside of the parameters of TWIG. It was, outside the parameters.
All right. Very good, thank you. Questions for Jen? All right. Okay, special town meeting warrant votes and speaker assignments. So, been through this recently. We are going to vote to recommend the articles as written, and remember, we're going to make motions to recommend, and then if you do not recommend, then you do not vote to support the motion.
May I just suggest, should we wait for Matt? Should we do something first? 'Cause- but, that's up to you. I'm just,
Yeah,
then we have
We
like a
can do
full.
the Ed-eval language.
Ed-eval language without them? Okay. All right, so Ed-eval language is in the folder. That was something that was carried over, like a little tiny piece from negotiations, and
I can speak to
Yep.
it. So in your packet under 12D, Unit A contract language for educator evaluation is part of the negotiation process, and in the bargaining unit contract, one of the things that is listed in there is the DESE teacher rubric for teacher evaluation. During the last round of negotiations, it was not changed, so we've still been operating on the 2012 rubrics. So we wanted, they were updated, I think, in 2018, 19, and then again in 2024. So we agreed during negotiations to have a separate working group that looked at that. So it's the Ed-eval committee, which is made up of the administrators and teachers. We reviewed all of the 24 rubric and made that, this is the agreement that we came to. The 2012 specialized instructional support rubric has not been updated, so we're continuing with the 2012 rubric there for those people that fall under that. This has been run by legal counsel already, and he says it's fine for us to approve, and then they'll go back and ratify it as well.
Is there a motion to approve the educator evaluation language for Unit A contract as presented?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Kate, second by Haley. Further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Now we went out of order. We're jumping back to special town meeting. So we were just saying, well, we're going to vote. The motion will be to recommend, and then if you don't recommend, you do not, you vote in the negative. And then, so a reminder, like with all town meetings, we retain the right to vote to recommend, not recommend, radum, amend on the floor, or any other actions that are custom for town meeting. And we can call public meetings as needed. All right, so Article 1, borrowing for water treatment plant replacement.
Do we need to vote on this one?
Well, we had voted on it until it got removed from the,
Just
you know,
rethinking, like, Sasha had mentioned that maybe we don't need to vote on all of the.
I mean, it's water infrastructure,
felt
which
like that was-
impacts
yeah, it
everybody,
impacts the schools,
including our
so
district.
we should
I would feel comfortable voting on it.
If it's zoning or something that doesn't impact kids at all, maybe, but I don't know.
Yes, for the prior time meeting, what I raised was we should have some kind of rubric or guide of what do we or don't we? Or should we just, because we are town officials, vote on every single one because it's our obligation? That's what I was bringing up. This would be a good question, right? It doesn't impact, well, you could say that it impacts the schools, you could make a case that doesn't. The financial impact could. I would say let's hold that till next year.
Oh, fine. Fine. That sounds good.
And we did vote on this one, so I'd say, let's just stay consistent.
True, yeah.
My personal
All right.
opinion, let's stay consistent with what we did. We voted on it, let's do it again.
I did, after that conversation, reach out to the MASC to ask if there were templates like that they could provide to us, and they were like, it's so town-specific that's not something that's in their purview. So I did make the inquiry.
We're gonna do an ops meeting and settle it.
All the rubrics.
There we go.
Okay.
I move to support Article 1, borrowing for water treatment plant replacement.
Second.
Okay, moved by Sasha, second by Jenny. Further discussion? All in favor? Okay, passes. Speakers, I think, last time we kind of just said, yeah, we approve. Unless somebody feels particular that we need to make a grand speech about this. Okay, so we'll just generally show our support. or recommendation?
Move to approve.
No, recommend.
Support. I would move to
Recommend.
recommend Article 2, amend zoning bylaws, Section 9D floodplains.
Second.
Moved by Sasha, second by Matt. Further discussion?
Yes, I don't know much about this.
I thought we decided last time that we weren't gonna take a position on this one. I'm sorry.
Sasha,
You didn't.
Sasha, what do you think?
Jump in front of me then.
We can just, I mean, yeah, we can decide every article, I don't know. We can decide.
What's up?
We can decide whether to support or not as the time comes, I think.
As what?
As the time comes, every,
Right, yeah, that's true, yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm comfortable voting on it. If people are uncomfortable, people could abstain.
Yeah. I feel like a barometer for making the decision is, again, like, what is the direct impact to the schools, right? So I guess how does this apply to the student body or families, or like what consideration should we be?
I think it's like a public safety possibility, you know. Flooding could impact access to the neck, which could impact getting kids to school, or kids walking home from, you know, I don't know. So I think that could be the only
Yeah, that makes sense.
link I could see would be like a public safety.
I also think that it's like on the bigger picture, like boards supporting boards or not, you know, sends messages.
I think that applies to the previous one too, because that's part of the strategic plan and it's part of like the Big 8 project. So by taking a position on that, I think is indirectly supporting strategic plan. Why are you laughing at me?
Because I can't hear a word
Oh,
you're
sorry.
saying. As the night goes on, everybody's voices
Okay.
are getting tired and
Sorry.
quiet, and I can't hear anything.
I was just saying, I think what Haley said applies to the strategic plan, like boards supporting boards, and the water treatment plant is one of the Big 8. So by supporting things like that, we're sort of indirectly supporting the strategic plan of the community.
Okay, so there's a motion and second on the table. Is there any further discussion?
Sorry.
As a-
Just to be clear, I think it's important safety-wise. I just didn't, then this is my own fault, research this particular information. So I feel like I let the team down, but
That's okay.
I don't know enough about this particular thing to.
can
so
abstain.
I'll abstain. Okay, fine, that's fair.
Yeah,
I just
that's fair.
want a
I was
public
gonna
record, I
ask,
do
as a
care
straw
about
poll, would
safety.
you in general, would people prefer we rat them? I can withdraw my motion to support.
Oh, till I have time to
Oh,
dive in? It doesn't matter.
I think we should,
Good, all right.
Yeah, and I guess similarly, if you change, you know, have an opinion by town meeting, you can let us know and we can report that.
That's fair.
Oh, good.
So at this time, motion, second, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, 6 opposed, abstained? Okay, 601 passed. Article 3. You rolling?
I move to support Article 3.
Recommend?
I move to recommend Article 3, Home Rule Petition, amend Charter, Section 1, Section 6, Town Manager. Seems wrong.
Who's-
That's the way it's written.
Yeah. Moved by Sasha,
Second.
second by Jenny. Further discussion?
some, just clarification, this is, despite what some people are saying on social media, this is removing the town manager residency requirement.
Correct.
And the language underneath in italics explains that it was on the ballot, it was submitted and voted on May 10th.
Okay.
And it was approved by the 2/3, but there was some kind of a legislative processing error, so they have to vote it again.
Okay, yeah, I just think there's been some chatter that this is introducing a residency requirement, and it's not, it's actually removing.
Yeah, I think when was it voted on? I recall this from last time, that we were kind of an outlier. towns having that requirement. And it seemed that it last time passed favorably, removing the requirement, which is what we're being asked to vote on again. Further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Great, 7-0 passed. Oh, I'm also going to assume that for Articles 2 and 3, we are not having speakers. Okay. Last one, Article 4.
I
Keep going.
motion
Keep
to-
it rolling.
A lot of language
support-
there, but.
I
yeah.
motion to support, is that right? Article 4, amending.
Recommend.
What? And what?
Motion to
You
recommend.
move to
Oh,
recommend.
Sorry. A motion, no motion, no. I motion to recommend Article 4, amend the Ipswich Protective Zoning Act.
Moved by Jenny. Is there a second?
Basically the 3A
Correct.
again.
I'm not
Second,
hearing.
just to get a vote.
Right, so
We-
we could get a vote.
Second is, so I'll second it. just
Okay,
'cause
so
we need
moved
to
by
vote
And then you
Jenny.
can change it, yeah.
Second
but I
by
could- yeah.
Kate. Okay,
Just kidding.
further discussion. We've discussed this one several times.
Right. Or, I mean, is it worth further discussion about
I'm
why
opening it
people
to
might
further
support
discussion.
it or not support it?
Sure.
Is it worth discussing why people might support it or not support it? Okay. I mean,
I'm
I don't,
asking you if you would like
I
to.
don't support it because it's a law and I think we already are in compliance and I think we should maintain compliance. And that's how I feel. The end.
I agree.
I think there's an issue, the technical nature of removing the entire section, even whether you personally don't agree with it, but whether you agree with it or not, the issue of just removing the section versus what, like, the previous article is written, where it is replacing adjusting language versus completely removing something, I think is concerning, because it, while I understand the intention, it completely opens up or removes any guidance around multifamily
So,
overlay.
oh, okay.
So I'd be mindful of that.
I didn't realize that this was changing the 3A.
It's removing
Now I
To
understand.
the current, yeah.
It's a citizen's petition. Okay. Any other further discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, the motion fails, so we do
Not support.
do not support. One recommended, 6 do not recommend. Speakers. I do not think we need to speak to this again. Does anybody feel otherwise?
I'll just say ditto or,
What?
can I speak on behalf of this?
So if you're going to speak, then we will need to have a speaker speak for the majority.
Oh, yeah, the other side. What did you say? Sorry.
We shouldn't just have a minority speaker. We should, if we're having a minority speaker, we should have
Right,
a
that's what I'm saying.
majority
Oh,
speaker as
Well,
well.
if I'm not allowed to speak, then I won't speak.
It's not that you're not allowed, it's,
I can,
are
I
you,
can go as a citizen, so.
I guess, what is your intention? Because then, like, I would
Oh,
just,
to have people vote, yes.
but what is your intention, like, to speak or not? Because you have the right to speak, but I think, I'm not hearing anybody saying, I definitely want to speak for the majority, but if there's a minority speaker from the school committee, then
Right.
perhaps, or I think we should have a majority speaker.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to speak. I can't force anybody to speak on the other side, so I don't know.
So you plan to speak?
Yes, I'd like to speak, yes.
Okay. Do we have a speaker for the majority?
I spoke to 3A last time, I can do it again.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. All right, see, moving along.
Flying through this.
Okay, look, we already did the next item. And next, superintendent and administrator salary approval.
We Everyone's looking at me. So we discussed this in executive session earlier this evening, and I would move to support the superintendent's salary approval as discussed in executive session this evening.
Second.
Moved by Kate, second by Jen. Further discussion? All in favor? Okay, passes.
We also discussed administrative salaries, and I would make a motion, or I would move to support the administrator salaries as discussed in executive session this evening.
Sorry, second. Moved by Kate.
Second.
Oh, sorry. Second by Jenny. Okay, further discussion? All in favor? Okay, passes. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, goals review. We can whip through this pretty quickly because when we did it a couple months ago, we actually were in a pretty good place, but I wanted to give us an opportunity to wrap up the year. I had kind of presented a list, but it was kind of just reinforcing what we had already discussed, so I don't know if anybody wants to, since we're pressed for time, anybody has anything specific they'd like to.
We passed the FEFI policy.
That was like
That was
huge.
a big goal.
Yep,
Huge.
yep.
Budget passed at town meeting.
Right, you're right. So yeah, we did put the cherry on top of a lot
Boxes
of
are
these.
getting checked.
Communications, I think we were successful in those endeavors.
Okay. I think the student safety awareness, and maybe this is a Dr. Blake issue, like just exemplified by one person showing up to opportunity. I think the communications of the newsletter and having a safety section has been effective.
Yeah, I think that could be seen as bad that only one person showed up, but it could also be good because the communication around it, a lot of work has been done and you've communicated it well, so
Yeah.
that's good, I think.
Yeah.
I also think that in light of there not being any concerns recently, that
Yeah.
it's not in the forefront of anybody's mind.
I think there haven't been
Thankfully.
issues recently because of a lot of the things that you've put in place, like the visitor system and the protocols and the fire drills and the.
Yep. Let's keep it that way. Onward. Okay. My last thought there is I feel looking at these like kind of similarly to how I felt, I think a lot of us felt when looking at Dr. Blake's goals is like just continuing to try to make them measurable, tangible. But that kind of segues into our next agenda item, which is or I guess, does anybody have any wrap up on the goals? Okay, well done. I think it was a successful year. Okay. Summer meeting schedule, retreat agenda planning. Okay, let's start with Monday, July 21st. I believe did we say 5 o'clock? Can people make 5 o'clock? Do we need to go to 6 o'clock? Are you good with 5? I know you were working. Okay. Location TBD.
Yeah, if anybody has suggestions, email me direct. Is that okay? If they email me directly,
Yeah.
I can, so that way only one person is checking in?
Well, if it's booking a meeting, oh, I see. Yeah, for streamlining it, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So we don't have two people calling, but,
Where have you looked? Have you looked anywhere?
yeah, should I say? So
You can say.
Well, I mean, just
Well,
so that I don't.
We
wear a
try-
Well, this is what we pay for ourselves.
Yes.
Right.
Totally.
I asked Turner Hill, they have under new ownership or something like that, so we
Okay.
couldn't get that. I asked the Hart House, they're not open on Mondays. Otherwise, they could absolutely accommodate us. Ugh. But I was wondering, Haley, the meeting house next to, that might be an option. I mean, I don't,
First Church?
Yeah, for
Some-
sure. I can
something.
email
yeah.
Rebecca.
Would you mind taking that one?
Yeah,
Okay,
Oh,
figure
that's cool.
that's an in.
Yeah.
Get food or something.
Yeah, just get delivery. Probably not. You know.
I was thinking, just like as a placeholder, I know this isn't super fancy, should I just request a room at Town Hall? I know we did it there once, but just so.
Yeah.
We did EBSCO lunch, which wasn't amazing.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
But it's better than
We meet,
Town
we
Hall.
eat, it's great. So wherever it happens, it happens. But if we can get a beautiful place, that's great. If not, we will. find something else, but I'll
To
put a
check with the
placeholder there.
trustees as well.
Okay.
There is a rental fee at the meeting house.
Oh, okay.
It's taking forever to load, but I'm trying to
I
pull
think
up
it's
how
like
much that
$300.
is.
Yeah. So it might be town hall. Okay. So, we're gonna have to have an agenda. I don't know who else is thinking ahead, but some, obviously we wanna have like some big topics we can really get into. Some ideas, I'll start with some ideas I had were budget, like just thinking, we keep talking about how we need to try to work ourselves out of this cycle that we're in with the overrides being as they are. So just some brainstorming, I don't think we get far, but just to kind of kick off that conversation, like what angles could we look at? Do people feel like that would be something worthy to have a little discussion on?
I'd recommend some subcommittee prep before.
Are you willing to do
Thing.
that?
No, logistically, I don't know that we can get together before that to have that done. I think it's hard to go into that cold with a group of this size. So I would suggest some prep if we're going to add that to the end.
So when are we gonna do that?
We were going to
talk?
start that in the fall. We were going to start that in September.
That's fine.
A workshop?
So you could carve out a workshop November-ish.
Okay.
If there's I don't know what time would be involved, but I know that our office has been absolutely inundated with right-to-know requests. So I'm wondering if we should spend some time at the retreat just having somebody review some of that with us. Just because I think it's timely and important and will be extremely important going forward in terms of,
What is it to review? I don't know. Is it just come in and you just give the information out?
well, just understanding what people can ask for and what we have to give them.
However,
It was,
so there was just is it MMA? Webinar on this topic? Is that enough?
Either MMA or I was thinking maybe legal counsel could do something for us locally that's specific to us and our current situations.
Yeah. That could be done because it's an open meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good idea. Maybe we throw out a bunch of ideas and then,
Yeah.
Don't we usually
what's-
go over or start to formulate school committee and superintendent goals at our retreat?
we
That
have
was
in
my
the
next-
past, but we don't have to. but
I
we
was
should.
thinking,
Yeah.
I feel like that's a great time. to
Yeah.
yeah.
Even just big picture things,
formulate-
but then the
start to
office can take
formulate
and like.
superintendent and
Yeah,
school committee
Kate.
goals.
yeah,
I
oh,
thought that was the purpose of our summer retreat.
We had talked about, again, if we're going to bring in MASC to help with a training, they do a training specifically on helping create goals. So that may be, I know we talked about other ones the last time, I don't think that made it but that could be something we could leverage them for to help.
Would that be a fall thing?
No, it's
Or
part
that-
of the,
Oh, it could be a summer.
I mean, it could be. We could kick it off and then we could have them do a workshop closer to the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, starting at 5 in the evening, we don't have a lot of time.
Right. By the time we
Yeah.
eat and everything else. too.
Yeah.
So.
I like that idea.
yeah, we could do it.
Hearing two things, let me start with goals. So is the recommendation to have MASC come to the retreat and then we make our goals? And just kind of focus on that?
I kind of like the idea of brainstorming like big picture goals at the retreat. And then sending it to the ops group, secret ops, operations, I should call it, in the fall to maybe like put some meat around it and come up with like specific recommendations and goals.
Well, and
But we
can
give
do that
higher
too. We
level.
could have if the, whoever that is, if that's us again, have somebody from the MASC come to that working group instead and help us kind of take those initial brainstorm ideas and flesh them out. And then, I mean, there are probably any number of ways we can slice it.
That might be nice, because even if you did it, and if other people wanted to go, we could just post it as a bigger meeting, but like optional, but essential for the people on
Yeah,
operations.
or if more
Yeah.
people wanted to attend,
Yeah.
depending on the outcome of the retreat, we could schedule a workshop.
Right, yeah, okay. So I'm hearing, we don't want to talk about budget, but we do want to talk about goals generally, to kind of just like kick that off, but then fine tune it in the fall.
Our goals were written this year intended to be durable. I don't know how different, like there was nothing specifically that we said like, in this year, this needs to be accomplished, it doesn't carry over.
I think,
I don't mind discussing it, but maybe it's like, we look at what's there, does anything feel like it needs to materially change? Like, we had one year where we specifically really focused it on safety. That feels like it should continue, but that was a specific and intentional add. I don't mind the discussion, I would do it in that context, to pull back up this year's goals and say, almost as if we were redlining it.
I was a strong proponent of that when we did it the first time around, but I feel like having gone through the assessment and evaluation process for the first time, I was like, oh, I would have done that totally differently. I feel like we need to work backwards from the rubric that we have for the superintendent's evaluation and apply that to how we're outlining the goals.
Yeah.
I have a
kinda-
request.
So
Oh,
yes,
sorry.
goals, we'll figure out what it looks like.
Okay, so lots about goals I'm hearing. Okay. And then, okay, so then back to public records and all that. Is that something we want to discuss at the retreat? Is that something we want to bring somebody in for? Thoughts around that?
I like it for the retreat, it feels like a short one.
You like it?
I mean, it could be, if we brought in Jen King, who works out of Nick's office, I mean, she could do a presentation for us.
Okay.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be during the retreat, but I think it's essential, given the climate that we're in, that we do that specifically. Otherwise, we're opening ourselves up.
Agree.
Yeah, I think that's something that should be done at a formal, I know the public's welcome to the retreat, but I think since it's so connected with the public, I think that should be at a typical school committee meeting that's televised.
It
'Cause
would
that involves the
It would
public.
probably be a workshop that would not be published.
Oh,
Film.
like an executive session or?
No.
No, just like a,
Oh,
work- like a
so
regular
public could still come.
Workshop, yeah.
workshop.
Yeah, if they can come, any open meeting, they can come, so.
Wait, sorry, you think, okay, workshop. Workshop or retreat, that could work.
So you're,
Workshop or retreat, that could work?
Yeah, workshop.
Okay.
but like workshop at the retreat, like have a speaker, have her, see if she can come.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so potentially that, okay.
I have a couple other ideas.
Yep, go ahead.
We've talked about, and I don't know if this would be a retreat thing, but we've talked about like some discussion around a field trip
Oh, right.
philosophy. And I don't know when we were gonna sort of
She working on
decide
that?
on that.
We're
I know you're putting together,
more administrative at this point.
okay. So it could be something like
believe
you
it'll have to
present
come
to us
to
in the
you
fall
folks,
maybe,
yeah.
and we talk about
Yeah.
at a regular meeting?
We
Okay.
can
I just don't want that to fall
talk
through the
about
cracks,
our
because we've been
goals.
talking about it for years.
I'm sorry?
maybe things we.
Yeah.
make
We've
yourself-
been talking about it
yeah.
for years, so I think
Yeah.
I'd like to get that,
Yep.
get some sort of framework around that, but maybe not at the retreat. And then the other one was school building committee discussion, I think, so that has to happen within 60 days. School building committee needs to be formed within 60 days of July 1st, so that's essentially by the end of August. So at some point, we need to discuss, I don't know who appoints the other members.
So
We
I-
self-appoint ourselves. So I think at some point, we need to have a discussion of who's interested in that and
We can certainly
what.
talk about that at the retreat. The school committee will have representation on the school building committee.
Right.
The school committee does not appoint the school building committee.
Select board does.
Select board and town manager do.
Could we have,
Might be good it might be good to spend time on the overall the overall MSBA process, in particular, what goes on in eligibility.
Well, where we're going to actually be within it, the eligibility period, I wonder if we'll have a better connection. Do we get a speaker? Will you have information to give us? I think just a general elementary update that will likely include the school building committee appointments.
I'm wondering if Laura can come to the retreat and take minutes. Why? Why? I can't.
Because it's summer.
She's on vacation.
Because you haven't been invited. You just take such good minutes. There's always so much good brainstorming going on.
All right. So, okay, so I feel like those are three pretty heavy ones: goals, public records, and elementary update, and then obviously like reorganization. Okay. Yep, go ahead.
Sometime between now and then, sorry, another thing we do in the summer is reappoint a chair and subcommittees and subgroups and stuff. So I don't know if before,
Oh, that's right.
between now and July 21st, if people want to submit to you what they're interested in, and then you can, typically I feel like that's
Last
decided.
year, the chair and vice chair were appointed at the meeting, and then people sent in their requests to the new,
Subcommittees.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
I think we have time.
okay. But we
Prior.
decide chair and sub-chair at that meeting?
What? Yeah, yeah,
decided-
reorganization, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So that's at the retreat?
yeah.
Okay. That's on the agenda. It will be.
I just,
It'll
yes,
be
I saw.
short. Okay.
Yep, so we have 4 general items. Good, feeling good? Yeah, I think that's gonna be hearty. Okay. And then just thinking ahead, I looked at our calendar from this past year. It looks like our first school, hard to think ahead like this, but it looks like our first school committee meeting for the next school year might be August 21st.
That before school starts. That's before school
Yeah,
starts.
last year we met on August 22nd.
Really? Is that week and a half before school starts?
Like a week, I think.
Less than a week. It should start the 27th.
Yeah, I don't have any dates in yet, but yeah, that makes sense, because then it would be 2 weeks.
November 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be 2 weeks till the 4th, which is the first Thursday in September, so.
So I'd say hold that date, more to come. And then it's way too soon to tell, but last year we did have a tri-board meeting like in mid-August. I'm not aware of anything being booked, but just with everything going on in town, you never know what we might be invited to, so. We'll see.
I don't support that.
All right, and then we had talked about having an MASC workshop. Were we going to talk about budget and I think special education funding. I was going to reach out in June to book something for the fall. Is that still people are interested in and time-wise?
Special education funding?
I think those were the 2 topics we landed on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's funding. It was just,
funding?
Funding,
I can't remember. I can pull it up.
Not sure what
think-
that means.
I don't remember.
we both brought up.
I voted for it, but I don't remember I don't think it was funding. Like explaining what circuit breaker is, I don't know, maybe it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a little deeper dive into,
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
it's a big
The
part, I think
expenses
my,
relative to Ipswich or just
in general.
In
special
general.
education funding expectations, laws?
I think so. Yeah, they had
yeah,
like their
grant,
menu
federal
of things.
grants and, because it's a big part of our budget.
Yeah.
So I think it's good for us to understand.
Well, we can have somebody from MASC come in too. Like, yeah, like they can.
It's like listed in there.
Yeah, they have like a whole list of things they'll go over. Okay. Great. Anything else about meetings, retreats, agendas? Great. Okay. No. Okay, approval of subcommittee meeting minutes. I'm going to go down my list and then just throw it out there if you have other ones. Budget.
I move to approve the budget subcommittee meeting minutes from March 26th.
Second.
Moved by Sasha, second by Kate. All in favor? Great. The rest of us abstain. Passed. Communications.
I move to approve the communications subcommittee meeting minutes from June 3rd.
Second. All in favor? Oh, yeah, it's you. Okay. And passed. Everybody else abstains. Mutual concerns. Did you ever meet?
Nope.
Okay, none there. Operations. Anything outstanding? Do you have outstanding minutes from your last meeting, though?
Yep. I totally fell asleep at the
While
wheel.
you're
I'm sorry.
while you're pulling those up, policy. I move to approve meeting minutes from April 16th. Second. Okay, moved by me, second by Jenny. All in favor? Great, passes. Effie's policy working group.
Move to, what do I say? Move to approve meeting minutes from FEFI Policy Working Group from May 15th.
Second. All in favor? Okay,
Great,
passes.
yep.
And then elementary school building project working group.
I move to approve the elementary subcommittee meeting minutes from April 15th.
Second. Moved by Sasha, second by Jenny. All in favor? Passed.
I move to approve the Operations Subcommittee meeting minutes from Thursday, October 24th, 2024.
Wow, it was a while ago.
Almost
Okay.
a second. Well done.
Moved by Haley, second by Sasha. All in favor? Okay, passes. All right, I think that hits everybody. You can do yours at your next meeting.
Well,
for
you know what, we
athletics,
have an
though.
attendance issue because Sasha and I were there last time, but Matt couldn't make it, but now Matt is going to be there.
I
and
see.
So
Okay,
we need
go,
to pass
do
this.
it.
So I move to approve the meeting minutes from the Athletic Policy Working Group on May 20th.
Second.
By Jen, second by Sasha. All in favor?
Yep.
And abstained, right? Okay, passes. All right.
Looking at you like that.
Well done, new business.
Oh, I have one. Just got a couple, actually, different parents have reached out in the past couple days to inquire about the police officer and the flashing lights on Linebrook Road over by Doyon during school pickup. That it's either there's a police officer often not there and/or the flashing lights are not working, and people obviously fly down Linebrook Road. So I'm not sure what kind of recourse, like who to reach out to about that, but.
The blinking yellow light?
The blinking yellow light, and then normally there's a police officer parked
Linebrook Road and
Doyon, in front of Doyon Elementary.
Blinking lights have been working recently, the last couple of days. I see them.
crossing
At
lights,
Doyon?
or they're
At
just
Doyon.
the,
I go right past on my way home from work.
Okay.
oh, school zone lights, not a crosswalk?
No, yeah, you know, like when, during that
School's in
pickup
session,
time, it's
yeah.
like a drop-off in the morning and then at pickup. I only pick up on Fridays, so I'm not over there. But a couple different people reached out to express
So the
concern.
police officer that's there is assigned there if there's nothing else going on in his area? Right, so the days that he might not be sitting there during that time means he's off on another call? Because they have different quadrants of the town that they work in. The lights, I'm not sure about. But if he's,
I think they weren't working for a while there, but they seem to be this week, at least in the afternoon. So maybe someone got on that, but.
Someone did say,
I can ask the
in the
ELD
outreach,
about
someone
that.
sent a timestamp saying, lights not working, timestamp.
Timestamp.
So,
Yeah, okay, all right. I can ask, I don't,
Yeah,
you know,
I
I don't
just
even.
wanna pass it along,
I'll
yeah.
start with the ELD tomorrow. I have no idea who's even responsible for that.
thanks.
Anything else? Okay. Consent agenda. I move the Ipswich School Committee to accept the meeting minutes from May 15th, 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by me, second by Sasha. Further discussion? All in favor? Passed. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
By Jen, second by Jenny, second by Haley. All in favor? Passed.
Thank you.
Adjourned at
We did it.
10:58.